Hello and welcome, everybody. It is Friday for me today, and Friday means Fundamentalist Fail today. And we've got none other than Hovind the Lesser as our little subject today. And I found this actually fantastic. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. I do have to apologize for yesterday. Yesterday was a complete muck up on my part. It was completely my part. I did get the wrong time. And I sincerely apologize to Jeff and Jason for stuffing that up. But I did reschedule, so we'll still be talking Baja Con. I'm really interested in knowing what it's about and everything. So I was very disappointed. But that's okay. People make mistakes, and I apologize profusely. And I will get the timings right at some point. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, Jed, I hear you, mate. I really do. So yeah, that is a big stuff up on my part. I thought it might have been sort of time zone change, but that couldn't be the case because I set the time myself. I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe I just had a bit of a brain thing. But I sincerely apologize to Jeff and Jason from Baja Con's production team. That sucks. But I'm trying to be nice to myself, so it was an honest mistake. I certainly did not intend for it to happen, but yeah, I definitely have rescheduled, so we'll be talking about that. And I must admit, I would love to go. So yeah, but that aside, I do feel great today. I feel fantastic today. So yeah, that's awesome. But I always love talking about well, see, Eric Hovind, he's a bit of a weird one. He's sort of used to be um like his father, basically. Just a I mean, he still is a science denier, but he sort of has turned into a precept lately. He's turned into well, I'm going to just, put forward these arguments that he learnt off Ray Comfort kind of thing, that all of, presuppose all of this stuff. And so it's kind of funny because he sort of learnt from his father, like from Kent Hovind, who is, an absolutely despicable, horrible human being, that we have to prop up science, and we've got the real science, and he's sort of more in the so that is the evidentialist camp, right? That says, hey, even if you're saying, hey, look at the trees kind of thing, it's still the evidentialist camp. You're still saying, hey, science provides evidence of God, or these things provide evidence of God. You're in the evidentialist camp, and Kent Hovind definitely is saying, hey, you know, I mean, he doesn't really debate about stuff like, um, you know, theology or anything. He really just does evolution, but he more is like, oh, well, you can't explain where the universe came from, therefore God. It's a terrible argument. It really is the worst possible argument you could put out there. But it still is an evidentialist thing. You're saying, hey, look at the life and things and stuff like that. But sort of his son is now, he used to be part of that camp, the, look at all the amazing things of God, therefore God exists kind of thing. So, but now he's gotten into precept. So it's kind of, it kind of is a bit weirder because, and I would like to do maybe a video on precept, or start doing videos on things. I really think that precept, it's just, it's a non-starter on so many levels, like just on so many levels it's just a non-starter. So he kind of has been leaning in that direction. I think he's sort of yeah, and that's true. Marty, actually, Marty said in the chat, that's true, Marty. He got this off Sci 10 maybe, and sort of, I guess Ray Comfort, he's not really a precept, he's kind of an evidentialist, but he sort of has gone down this route of, well, we're just going to presuppose God is responsible for morality or coherence or any of these things, assume that it exists, and then just go from there, essentially. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is you're already assuming that God exists by putting forth the premises that you've got to show that God exists before you can actually assign anything to it, like morality or coherence or intelligibility or anything like that. You can't just say, "Hey, I'm going to assume that up front," and then my conclusion is, "Well, because I've assumed it up front, it's actually true." It's a really baffling sort of weird way of going about things, and every time you run into a precept, I don't think they're doing any favors for converting people to Christianity or, um, convincing people that they're right. They more just, I don't think presuppers are there um, to, they're not there to actually convert people. They're there to sort of reinforce a segment of Christianity that already believes it because it's not great. It's not great. Um, but yeah, this one's sort of he's got on a physicist. Well, he's a retired physicist. So you'll notice a lot of this in the creation sort of, creation institute and Genesis research and stuff. They basically that they will lean on retirees, basically. People that have retired, they're not actually doing anything anymore. And they are, well, essentially they're just sort of funding their retirement by essentially plugging for the Creation Institute or whatever institute they're going from. And this is Dr. Danny Faulkner. Now he does have a physics degree. That's the crazy thing. But he's absolutely. Oh, thank you, Jedi. There we go. Thank you so much, Jedi. Gifted 5 readerships. Let's go. Who did that hit? I got to find out. That goes out to Leophilius, Caterpillar, Ian Chen, Official, Brandon Smith, Jenna, Miyu. And actually, that reminds me, do I have any, thank you so much, Jedi. And do I have any readerships myself? I wonder. I think I should have some left, maybe. Yeah, I do. So I'm gonna organize that. Just one second. All right, let's send those out as well. Thank you, Jedi, and that absolutely reminded me that I probably have some left, so thank you so much. Okay. Come on, baby, hit some regulars. You know what? The only one I recognize is BTF Wayne, who's awesome, but that's the only one I recognize. So, yeah, you win, Jedi. You hit Leo, you hit Caterpillar, you hit Ian Chen. Wow, that's some good shooting, buddy. That's some good shooting. Okay, but we have BTF Wayne, DJ Megan Satanas. Actually, I remember DJ Megan. She's awesome. So yeah, no, I did hit somebody that I recognize. Michael N, Bob Champagne, and Yuri Basukov. Fantastic. So yeah, then 5 went out from me as well. But thank you, Jedi. I really appreciate it. That means a great deal to me. That is awesome. And yeah, so who is Dr. Danny Faulkner? He basically got a very real physics degree. From what I've read, he basically, I mean, it's just in general physics. So there is specialized areas of sort of physics, right? And so when you're talking about things like origin of universe, you're talking about cosmogony, right? So the origins of the universe, which I don't think he's a cosmogonist. He basically got he had a master's in astronomy in the 80s or like early 90s or something. But then he got a doctor of philosophy in astronomy from Indiana University. Um, the problem is that he goes around using the term doctor, and he is an accredited doctor. That's the thing, but it's not really in mainstream. His doctorate is not in mainstream astronomy. It's a doctorate in the philosophy of philosophy in astronomy. So it is nuanced, and I'm not saying that he's not accredited. It's just like many of these guys, he's retired. He doesn't research anymore. He has researched in the past, and they're kind of really stretching those credentials to challenge all of astronomy with a guy with a doctorate in philosophy of astronomy. I didn't even know there was such a thing existed, but what can I say? Um, I don't know. I mean, obviously he probably knows more about physics than me, but I don't think that the problem is, and it's something that Dr. J pointed out, right? He pointed out that basically these people know how you get published and how you challenge established theory, and they're not doing it. They're very highly trained in sort of scientific method, but instead of actually, doing research, publishing papers, instead they're just going on Answers in Genesis and basically, publishing books and things like that. Um, I don't have a problem with that. They can publish all the books they want, but they're not really they're sort of saying, hey, don't listen to the mainstream science. And it kind of is, I don't think it's especially productive for actually challenging science. Well, we know it's not productive. It's not the way you do it. And so um, it's just frustrating that they're basically putting this stuff out there. But we'll see the hypocrisy coming in from their side. And I'll get this organized so we can have a look. Give me one sec. I'll just make that full screen and we shall get started. I do need to share it. Well, I hope you're doing well in the meantime while I get this set up. I hope you're doing really well. I'm doing fantastic. I always love a Friday. So yeah, and this is from I forget the name of his website. It's like give me 1 second, I'll find it out. So it's from Eric Hovind's thing, right? So it's Creation Today Ministry, which is a terrible, terrible name. Creation Today. Is it? Is it Creation Today? It's a weird name. And this is, Eric Hovind, president of Creation Today. Oh boy. And Answers in Genesis, which, so Answers in Genesis, it's kind of funny because they'll kind of work with Eric Hovind, but they really don't take his father seriously, which is kind of hilarious. Hmm. Well, I did want to look up what they say is credentials for um well, it says he's got a PhD in astronomy from Indiana University. But he also apparently he's a researcher, author, speaker for Answer Genesis. He also hosts Ark Encounter trips down to the Red River Gorge. So he does absolutely work for them. And don't forget, like Answers in Genesis requires a statement of faith kind of thing, right? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's get started and let's get into this and see what he's got to say. I mean, someone like Dr. Tapioca Weasel, maybe I should have gotten Dr. Tap because he seriously, like, Dr. Tap would love this, like, seriously.
Before the universe began, you had zero energy. After it began, you still have zero energy. The problem is we see.
Okay, that's just the introduction.
Of classroom experience and on the street experience that I think is going to really help equip you to share your faith anywhere and with anyone.
So Eric Hovind, he's one of the worst apologists, and he's running this How to Share Your Faith and Evangelize class. And he's just terrible at it. Like, he actually is terrible at this. So I'm struggling to there's obviously people worse than Eric Hovind, but he's not very good at sort of running convincing arguments. There's definitely people like the Neckleys are probably better than him. Ray Comfort is obviously worse than this guy. But he sort of has gone into this pre-sup thing that just annoys people. So I'm not sure why he would be. It just seems to be it seems to be a current climate that we're in of people that are not experts in something that basically they will tell followers and all kinds of people that they're experts, and then run courses. It's like what did I see the other day? It was in near the debate that Andrew Wilson didn't show up on. The man runs debating classes, and he's just an obnoxious goon at debating. Like, really, he should be running how to be a jerk classes, because I don't see how that man could possibly run debate classes. It's crazy. Damn it, Mark. Why? What do you mean why? What do you mean why, Jester? What do you mean why? I do this every Friday. All right, yes, I did Secular Success last week. I hoped you liked it. It was a change. I gave it a try. I don't know if people watched it. I usually don't pay any attention to metrics whatsoever. That's probably my bad. But I did try something different last week with Secular Success. And maybe I'll do it again. Maybe I'll do it again. Don't tempt me, Jester. I will do it. Don't even at me. Once upon a kitchen, there was a perfect bowl of noodles. Okay. I like it. I like it. Yeah, I'm trying to think of people, but there's definitely evangelical people better than Eric Hovind. He really is just. He's not great. Like, 100% he's not great, but he's not the worst. I will give him that. But I'm just sort of pointing out there is a climate of these people who are horribly bad, or just pretty bad at what they do, running classes for others kind of thing. That's their idea. Another one was who was that guy that I ran into? Joel. I can't even remember his last name. Something off the Think Institute. He runs classes for the Hammer and Anvil, like how to be a man. And it's like, dude, your entire identity is subsumed in a Christ belief. Like that, your entire identity revolves around that, which is just horrible. But I will say, no, I certainly wouldn't do that, Jester. Much love, buddy. I just thought, no, that's fair. That's fair. Why do we do anything? We try to have a laugh along the way. Come on, Jester. You love it. Admit it. Come on. Anyway, it's so good to see you all here as well. But yeah, these people that are just, if you're getting how to evangelize classes off the Hovinds, what are you doing? Like, seriously, what are you doing? Wow.
Spots are filling up, so if you plan on attending, you need to reach out to our office right away. Also,
call 1-800 and line 1-800 Big Dino and do line 3. I'm sorry, I'm just hassling because of his dad. It's not his fault. His dad is a complete and utter idiot. So yeah.
So this year marks the 100th anniversary of, put it in the comments if you know what it is before I say it, go, the Scopes Monkey Trial.
Woohoo! Does he know that the creationists basically lost that? Does he know that like the Scopes Monkey Trial basically established evolution as a science in the classroom? Does he know that? Is this like a rewriting of history? This is so weird because, I would understand sort of people like, people that support evolution saying, hey, it's the 100-year anniversary of the Scopes monkey trial, right? I don't. Well, I mean, yeah, and it was appealed to the Supreme Court of Tennessee. Yeah, I think the trial itself, they were like fined. Hang on a second. End of the trial. And of course it's Tennessee. Scopes was found guilty and ordered by Rustin to pay $100 fine. Yeah, so then it was appealed to Tennessee, and the basically it was overthrown by the prohibition of teaching religion. The guy died a few weeks after the trial. Yeah, I don't know. William Jennings Bryan. I mean, that was, I mean, and it's just interesting because the ACLU is sort of was on the other side. I think Bryan was the prosecutor. So basically, it was the Butler Act, which essentially made it illegal to teach evolution in schools in Tennessee. And a high school teacher, John T. Scopes, was basically charged with violating this sort of law. William Jennings Bryan, a three-time presidential candidate and former Secretary of State, argued for the prosecution. Yeah, so that was the prosecutor. And a criminal lawyer, Clarence Darrow, served as the main principal defense. But basically, the sort of so the teacher was accused, Scopes was accused of basically violating this Butler Act, which prevented the teaching of evolution in public schools. You know, what happened was that he was found guilty, fined $100, but it was overturned on a technicality, and it went to the Supreme Court, and basically evolution won in the Supreme Court. So when it went higher, it absolutely got shot down. Like basically evolution was found not to be any kind of religion, and being able to be taught, that the prohibition of teaching evolution was found to be a religious decision, which of course it is. But I think they're sort of upholding it as, hey, this should have been overthrown. Really, it was also Benedetto Mussolini absolving Parliament, constantly affirmed of Italy's dictator. Ominous. Yeah, that is ominous. That is very ominous.
100 years ago. So on July 2nd, down in Vero Beach, Florida, the home of William Jennings Bryan, we're going to be hosting a tribute day with information about his life, his campaigns, the truth about the famous Scopes trial that changed literally the trajectory of education and evolution in American life.
Yeah, it wasn't really the trial that did. It was more, I mean, it was, but it was the going up to the Supreme Court that did. That is really what happened. And I mean, there are other trials that are also important. It wasn't just the Scopes monkey trial. It was basically, what was it, 1968, I think, the Epperson versus Arkansas. It basically established that that bans sort of contravene the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, because the primary purpose is religious. Like, we're all aware that the influence of people like Hovind here, like, it is all based upon wanting their religious doctrine into the legislation. Like, we're not fooled by your, well, we just want it to be equal and stuff. No, 100% not. 100% no. They do want the school system to be teaching their religion and their religion only. And it is horrifying that they're talking about putting the 10 Commandments in classrooms. I cannot imagine any argument that could say, hey, that does not sort of violate the Establishment Clause, that you're not to establish any religion. I don't know how that works. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Somebody did send me a document on they're trying to put through a bill that's a religious liberty bill, and the religious liberty bill is basically trying to protect the religious liberty of citizens, while it's only going to be one religion. They're not going to be protecting the religious liberty of Muslims or Hindus or anything like that.
Looking forward to that. That's going to be an amazing event. And then right after that, July 24th to 26th, our friend Dr. Joel Brown of the Creation Research Society is hosting a conference in St. Louis, Missouri. It's going to be 3 days of updates from creation scientists from around the world. We will be there, and we hope to film as much as possible so that we can bring that to you guys and some fascinating Creation Today shows as well. And then finally, in August 18th to 22nd, we're going to be touring Mount St. Helens with Answers in Genesis, the Mount St. Helens Creation Center, and the Design Science Association for the 45th anniversary tour. It's truly going to be an incredible experience, and it's got some of your favorite creation science speakers. You're going to want to be at the Mount St. Helens Creation Experience. And I got to
Yeah, that is true, Jessica. They have struck down multiple mandated prayers, sort of doctrine in classrooms, whether that's the 10 Commandments or any other doctrine. The argument that Hovind, the senior, sort of makes is that evolution is a religion, and that is just such a ridiculous notion. The idea that anybody is doing any form of worship in evolution is just nonsensical. Like, I don't know how you could possibly make that argument. When I've challenged him directly and said, hey, what is the focus of worship or veneration that evolution has? What are we worshiping? He's like, time. Nobody worships time. Nobody venerates time. There is no sort of tenets, basically some moral or doctrinal pronouncements of time. It doesn't exist, right? Like, this is the crass stupidity of Hovind the Senior's arguments, that he can't actually point out where any kind of formalized worship is going on. It's just basically, I don't like that particular science. I want to get it out of schools. That he's using it as, and for somebody that sort of supports 10 Commandments and all of this biblical stuff, thou shalt not bear false witness. He's happy to violate that if it's in his best interest. Usual hypocrisy from the Christians.
I say we feel incredibly blessed to be a part of so many amazing things that are happening in the world of creation science. Honestly, it's a great time to be alive and to be part of a movement that we want to take over the whole world. And we're not shy about that. Christ is King. He's Lord of all, and his.
So that's scary, right? We want to take over the whole world, right? Like, so we want to impose our doctrine on people that do not believe it. And it's sort of, this is saying the quiet part out loud. Really, what people like this are after is a theocracy, is basically the systems and institutions that are created being run by the religious. So what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is our systems institutions at the moment are really based upon sort of secularism. And that doesn't mean that Christians are not welcome in the institutions, and that they're even welcome to bring their own perspectives on it. But we don't use those institutions to enforce religion or beliefs upon other people. So we have multiple institutions out there, like legal institutions, like, you know, our system of laws, our political institutions, the bicameral system. And in America, you have a system with three sort of branches of government that share power, so that power isn't consolidated under one person. There's a lot of these institutions that they're designed to help the people of their countries, and sort of basically provide them with a good way to live their lives, and basically better society for all of us. So a lot of these scientific institutions, you know, you have the National Institute of Health, you have the I don't know what it's called. I think National Institute of Science, NIS, I think it is in America. In Australia, it's the CSIRO, the Commonwealth Scientific Institute of Research and something organization, scientific research organization. So you have these institutions, and really you're basically saying, well, we want them all to be based around affirming this truth of Christianity, but that only really serves Christians. And we've seen this time and time again, where Christians, they purport to be incredibly generous, and you know, they'll take care of people. Really, they more take care of Christians. They really are interested in propping Christians up above everybody else, because the entire doctrine comes with this underlying assumption of them being the chosen people. So they're more than happy to leave others out in the cold and focus on making things better for Christian. And that's not how we run our society. The way that a country is run is we make things better for the citizens without favor on what they believe, or what their sex is, or what their gender is, or how they have been, you know, whether they were raised poor or raised rich, or, you know, all of these things. A pluralistic society is not giving favor to one religion. The problem is that they just want to impose that, and it worries me the length they will go to impose that. It really does.
Word is the foundation of truth. Now, whether you are a believer in Scripture or not, today we're going to learn how to separate what's real from what's ridiculous in the world of modern science. So get ready to think a little bit deeper, laugh hopefully a little bit, and strengthen your faith as we explore black holes, big bangs, and biblical truth.
And so one of the cosmological models that we've got, Hovind doesn't believe in. Okay, I'll explain why. So Hovind's a young Earth creator, or a young Earth creationist, or a yerfer, as I call them. I call them yerfers. Some people call them YECs, whatever. They basically say that the entire universe is only 6,000 to 10,000 years old. So, you know, the current cosmological model, he does not believe in. He says that no, things weren't sort of happening 14.6 billion years ago. That it all happened 6,000 years ago, which is quite honestly just ridiculous. We have sort of the Egyptian empire that is older than that. We have other places that are older than that. It's quite honestly ridiculous. The Bible doesn't specifically say anywhere how old the earth and the universe is. It doesn't actually say. So all of this is basically somebody went and added up the ages of all of the people in the Bible, or their presumed ages, and you sort of got a number, and that was anywhere between 6,000 to 10,000 years, and so they believe that, but it doesn't specifically say. So a lot of the scientists who are Christians these days said, well, it's just when they're talking about the ages, it's metaphorical. The universe is obviously older than 6,000. The Earth is obviously older than 6,000 to 10,000 years old. The evidence against it is overwhelming. The problem is that answers in Genesis and creation ministry, they basically say up front, if there's any difference between reality and what the Bible says, the Bible is correct, right? So if they find evidence that conflicts with the Bible, they will take the Bible over the evidence. And that's a problem, because they will ignore any study that remotely contradicts with the Bible passages. And I'm not sure how you manage to take that stance. There's one place in the Bible where it says that in order to get, I think it's striped goats, you put them in front of, striped sticks, and that then their children will be born with stripes on them. It's absolutely ridiculous. It might be sheep, maybe. It might be striped sheep. I'm not striped. Right. So the idea that so Jacob in Genesis 30, he peeled white sticks into fresh sticks and placed them where the sheep came to drink, and influenced the color of the offspring. And so if you want to believe the Bible literally, you would have to literally think that you can sort of peel off bark from sticks so they're striped, put them in front of goats, and that will influence how they're like. This is nonsense. This is a nonsense story. Yeah, Jackson, exactly. This is how genetics works in the Bible. It's ridiculous. It is obviously just a, just a folk story of how, why some lambs are born with genetic dissimilarities to their parents. You cannot believe this literally.
Right here on the Creation Today show. By the way, if you want to know what a creation scientist thinks about this, it helps to talk to a creation scientist. One of the men on the front lines of the biblical authority and creation science battles is...
Yeah, so they're not on the front lines of science, though. They're basically... So what they don't do, is actually publish anything on it, or put their work into a way that can be disseminated by the rest of the scientists. What they essentially do is they are not even on the field of science. They are sniping from the edges, and they use these accredited scientists as sort of that. They will try and pick holes in whatever they're saying. They're not interested, and I'll put this out there directly, they're not interested in promoting their own model, right? They're not interested in promoting what their actual model says. And I'll definitely point that out as we go along, where they're basically saying, well, essentially they're saying we're not here to show that our model is correct. No, what they're doing is they're trying to pick at any unknowns, or possibly any... I mean, it's fine to pick out errors in the current model, but you've got to be able to show that it's an actual error, and not just, well, it contradicts the Bible. That's not an error of science. Like, the science doesn't care what the Bible says. And they will try and just cast doubt on the current model. And that's okay, but you're basically saying, instead, believe in mine, but you're not actually showing your model scientifically. But they don't have to with their followers, because their followers already believe this stuff. So they're basically saying, hey, this model has problems. This model doesn't explain this. This model doesn't explain that. Believe mine instead. What a skeptic would do is say, well, where's the evidence for your model? Right? Where's the scientific evidence? If your model's scientific, where's the scientific evidence? But their followers already believe in this stuff. So they don't ever question that they're not getting any scientific explanation for the model that the other person is promoting.
Is a degreed astronomer and physicist. He looks at the whole universe and all of science through the lens of scripture. He's an author, researcher, writer, and speaker for Answers in Genesis. He loves his cherry. Oh, what's the cheer? I'm going to have to ask him. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome back to the Creation Today Show, Dr. Danny Faulkner. Dr. Faulkner, welcome back, buddy.
Thank you. And it's cheer wine.
It is cheer wine. I was like, cheer wine.
I don't know what cheer wine is. It sounds awful. It sounds like something an 18-year-old would drink, you know, at a party. Cheer wine. It's a unique cherry-flavored soft drink originating in Salisbury, North Carolina, known for its strong cherry flavor, burgundy color, and high carbonation. Despite its name, it contains no alcohol and is a popular Southern beverage. Oh, well, there you go. I honestly thought it was like we have this horrible stuff over in Australia. I'm not sure if it's in America. I really hope not. It's called I think it's called Passion Pop, and it is one of the most like it is horrible wine, absolutely awful. That's like passion fruit flavored, and it's sort of it's famous for, you know, when kids are drinking illegally kind of thing when they're like 17 or something, and they get passion pop because it's cheap and it's not very, you know, bitter or anything. It's very sweet, and it's absolutely awful stuff. Absolutely awful.
It's the drink that if I see it, I got to buy some just because of Dr. Faulkner. How you doing today, sir?
Real good. And yourself?
Oh, blessed beyond measure. What a time to be
blessed beyond measure. You know, okay, I'm glad he's happy. I really am.
alive. You've been studying science for years. I'll let you say it. How many years?
Well, I was in college a half century ago. So then I went to grad school after that. I graduated from Bob Jones University in 1976. So it'll be a big golden anniversary for me next year.
Not.
Yeah, and you know, I'm definitely not saying that Dr. Danny Faulkner isn't a real doctor or a real scientist kind of thing. He definitely has done scientific work, but he's done it within the framework of usual cosmology. So he's only gone to Answers in Genesis after he kind of retired, and I'm sure they are, you know, doing a wonderful funding of his retirement. The problem is that he doesn't actually publish any of this stuff. He doesn't actually follow the requirements of publishing scientific work. He basically just uses his credentials to put out his religious belief. And that's where we've got the problem. That if you thought creationism could be scientific, or if you thought you could support any of this stuff scientifically with research and experimentation and doing testing, then you would publish it. Even in retired, you can still publish, but he doesn't. And that's our problem. It's sort of like, well, if you want to challenge the status quo in physics, then, sir, publish, but you won't. And the reason why he won't is because he is not you know, on the cutting line, on the front lines of science. He is a retired physicist that has not published for quite some time. He's not. He's definitely not some kind of you know, current scientific expert that is bring people up to date on it.
Nice. By the way, there at Bob Jones, they don't have fraternities. We have what are called literary societies. You do all your social stuff within these organizations, and I was proud to be a member of William Jennings Bryan, named after William Jennings Bryan. So I really perked up when you mentioned his name. You know, I think Bryan was probably the last really outspoken born-again man in American politics. It's been 100.
Really? last outspoken born again man in American politics. I would beg to differ, sir, but you know, what do I know? Maybe I'm not up to date with. Maybe there are no outspoken born again men in American politics anymore. What the hell are you talking about? Is that? Oh, I think I know what it is. I think it's because most of the outspoken Christians in American politics these days are not young earthers. Basically, they're not yerfers. So, you know, yeah. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Yeah, and I absolutely agree, Traveller. You know, AIG pays him. Like I said, I bet they're funding a great retirement for this guy. I bet he's, you know, funded fantastic. As long as he peddles, yeah, YEC creation. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Years, we need somebody else like him again.
Wow. Well, I'm enjoying.
I wouldn't agree with all his politics, but he was a great man. He really was.
And that's what this event wants to do, is it wants to highlight some of what he did. They've got people that are going to talk about what he did on the campaign trail and things like that, how he campaigned. They've actually got some original memorabilia there from him. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and learning that as well. We do need.
And his Cross of Gold speech was probably the best speech in U.S. history.
Yeah, I'm not yeah, I don't think that the Scopes monkey trial was really a much of a fair trial in Tennessee kind of thing. I think that when it went to the Supreme Court, you had a much better, you know, I mean, went to the Supreme Court and just got slapped down. So, yeah.
Cross of Gold.
Cross of Gold, yes.
I'm gonna have to look that one
Amazing
up.
speech. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of seems a bit unreal, doesn't it, Jackson? Like, you know, forget Kennedy's, you know, speeches, forget, you know, Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech. You know, I think there's been some much better speeches. I mean, look at you could also look at Lincoln's speech. You know, I mean, come on, really.
All right, Amanda, make sure I read that one. Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Well, today I want to talk about Big Bang, black holes in the Bible, and how does all this come together? I reached out to you a couple months ago and said, man, I'm fascinated where modern physics is really at, because it seems like sometimes they're in the real realm and sometimes they're in the ridiculous realm. And like, I need some help distinguishing sometimes where are they at on these things. And
well, okay, so I see in chat we're arguing whether this is an appeal to authority, and yes, it is, absolutely. So the thing about it is that when we're sort of using science and scientific credentials to sort of say, hey, this is what science says, or this is the current scientific sort of theory, or even the most supported hypothesis, we're really not appealing to any one individual within any scientific field. We're really appealing to the consensus among the experts in the field. So I will point out that I see nothing suggesting that Dr. Faulkner here has any specialization in cosmogony, right? That he may have studied cosmology, which is, you know, the you know, planets, stars, all of this kind of stuff, but cosmogony is the beginnings of the universe. So it doesn't really, he's not really an authority on the specific subject. Now, he might have knowledge of black holes. I don't know how he keeps the time frame of 6,000 to 10,000 years when you've got black holes, but who knows? Who knows? And this will get into problems later on. But we don't appeal to any one person. Like, just because a doctor says one thing doesn't mean that that is the medical opinion. We really go to the consensus. So yes, this is an appeal to authority, but it is debatable whether he is an authority. I get what you're saying. Because you can always find sort of, you know, scientists, there's always a crackpot scientist out there somewhere that will agree with, you know, some crackpot theory. You know, okay, he may be right, but the way you prove it is not just giving that guy an amplifier, you know, putting him on everything and saying, well, he's right because he's talking the loudest. No, there's a certain way we go about that, and that is publishing, peer review, and then changing the consensus by the dint of research kind of thing. That's how we do it. And those people that, like Dr. Danny Faulkner, He knows this. He's been trained in this, and this is sort of, I had a conversation with someone who was talking about Dr. J. Bundy. If you don't know Dr. J. Bundy, he is a guy who wonderful, awesome person who he runs Pocket Locker on YouTube, and he had a debate with Bahi, Dr. Bahi, who from the evolution trial, the Kitzmiller versus Dover evolution trial. He was the main creationist guy, and he pointed out, look, you know how to change scientific perspective. You know how to do this, and it was a very good point. Dr. Faulkner absolutely knows that going into a creationist think tank, putting out articles on their website, publishing books supporting them, that is not how to change scientific consensus. And he damn well knows that. To change scientific consensus, you have to publish and be peer reviewed. And he knows it. So that's why, and I support Dr. J. Bundy when he sort of said, you guys are frauds, because they know that is how they do it.
I thought let's have some.
Oh, thank you, Jer. That's awesome. Thank you.
Fun today and take a couple topics and let you kind of expound on, is that real or is that ridiculous? Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Is it real or ridiculous? Are we going to put a all-powerful master of the universe created it in there? Is that real or ridiculous? How about the talking snake in the garden? How about the talking how about the talking donkey in there? Oh, how about if you put striped sticks in front of sheep, they come out striped. How about that? Are we going to put that in real or ridiculous? Because I've got a category for you for the idea that striped sticks can change the genetics of sheep. I have a category for you.
All right, I thought I'd start off. I heard you say this in the Genesis movie that we did back in 2017, that it's still unmatched in my personal, humble, unbiased opinion.
Oh God! Like these Christian movies, I swear, they're just terrible. Talking donkey, you know what? That is. I've never seen a donkey that orange, but I'm prepared to keep an open mind, quite frankly.
GenesisMovie.com. You talked about the first and second laws of thermodynamics as the most fundamental laws in all of science, and I thought that was fascinating. Are we still there? Because it seems like some of the things that physicists are trying to come out with would actually go against, or some of the things they're claiming would go against some of these fundamental laws, like the laws of thermodynamics. Can you spend a minute on that one?
I don't think they would. I'm not aware that they would. I'll listen to Dr. Faulkner and see what he's got to say, but I'm not aware that they would. The first and second laws of thermodynamics. So the first law is energy can neither be created or destroyed. I'm not 100% sure how sort of scientists are saying that's being, or they're proposing things that would violate that. And the second law is that in a closed system, it always tends towards entropy or disorder, basically. So I'm not sure how that, what they're proposing violates that either. Yeah, an isolated or a closed system, ONB, yes. I mean, presumably the universe is an isolated system, I would expect. But, with the expansion of the universe, I don't see why entropy would not increase as the energy is spread further and further. It doesn't, nothing about that really violates it.
No, it's not changed. The first and second laws are considered to be fundamental by just about everybody. I've heard many prominent physicists and not even believers, non-Christian physicists, saying the same thing about the first and second laws of thermodynamics. They rule supreme. And there's a famous quote by Arthur Eddington, I believe, that if your theory, no matter how good it is, if it violates the laws of thermodynamics.
Andrew says, technically the first law said the total amount of energy in an isolated system cannot change over time, not necessarily. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Total amount of energy is the same. Yeah, no, I got you. I must admit, physics is not my strong suit, but yeah, I get what you're saying. So that just means that essentially energy, like the total amount of energy in an isolated system, it just changes. It never actually so even if you have a change in state, like you burn something, the amount of energy that will come out is the amount of energy in it. So it changes, and it uses energy to change. And I think that's the third law. But it'll be the same amount of energy in any system.
Dynamics, you're dead. It can't be done. So they're there, and they're part of the way the world works. That's not been changed.
And when we go to thermodynamics, just the laws themselves indicate that there was something outside of the universe that created the universe. Would that be a succinct? Maybe you got a more succinct way of saying that, because the first and second law kind of contradict if we go back in time. That's what I remember you talking about.
Just take me a minute and a half to do this real quick. The first law says that energy can neither be created nor can it be destroyed. So if you had a universe that began sometime in the past, it would have violated that. So therefore, the universe must be eternal. On the other hand, the second law says that energy becomes less useful. We have the less usefulness of energy we describe by a thing called entropy, defined by entropy.
So basically, energy is kind of defined in physics as the ability to do work. So it's basically, when he's saying less useful, I don't think he means in a pragmatic way. I think he means that it sort of has less ability to do work. But I don't see why that would prevent an eternal universe. I don't understand.
So it says that the entropy of the universe is always increasing. That is, the inability to do work with the energy in the universe is always increasing. So if you do that, then if the universe has always existed, then the universe should have reached a maximum entropic state. No work would be possible, and that's clearly not the situation.
No, the problem is that the way that they're thinking of eternal, right? So they're thinking of eternal as infinite time. Okay, like a theory of time. So there is another possibility that in the beginning of the universe, it was in an atemporal state, so no time whatsoever. Under that, it would have lasted, there's no time, so it is eternal, but it's a very bad way of describing it, because it's sort of saying, hey, it sort of, continues forever with this sort of solid progression of time. But we know that time is not the steady state thing that we think it is. Space-time does not work like that. It can be compressed, it can be expanded, it can be stretched. The thing is that he's thinking of things as eternal and not atemporal. So if the universe was in an atemporal state, it would have, it's really hard to apply these words to it, but would have existed forever, because in an atemporal state, it both exists for forever and no time at all, right? So in that case, it basically could be that the entropy basically can continue back, and the energy can't be created and destroyed. That does not violate it in any way. So I don't think he's right on this one. It's weird that he's maybe he's a proponent of a theory of time. A theory of time sort of says that time is this linear progression that sort of, has these discrete kind of units. And sort of the B theory of time, which is the one that most physicists think is correct, or almost all physicists think is correct, is that everything's happening simultaneously. Kind of thing. I existed in an atemporal state. How could you exist in an atemporal state for 13.7 billion years? That doesn't make any sense. Jackson!
So therefore, the universe must have had a beginning. Well, those two laws work hand in glove.
If 13.7 billion years pass, it's not atemporal. Look, we might sort of, and here's the thing I want to say about these laws of physics and laws of nature and laws of things. We kind of are just trying to describe them. They're not, I think that in some ways that even just the language we use and the things that we use to describe the universe are kind of insufficient, that we're trying the best we can to model them. And some models are better than the others. They're all useful, but some are more accurate than others. And we basically try to do our best. But I think physicists and philosophers and things, they get basically hooked on this idea that the descriptions of the properties of the universe are exactly accurate, that they are exactly what they say they are, instead of this is the best model we have. There could be better models out there. There could be a model where, you know, obviously if we do find a grand unified theory that can marry classical physics and quantum physics, for instance, and that would be a better model than the current physics we had. Under that paradigm, those laws of thermodynamics, while working on a macro scale, there may be better ones that describe both macro and quantum states, basically. So, you know, we may have better physics out there. That's no reason not to use the current ones that we have. Just like Newtonian gravity wasn't the most accurate, but it worked for so many things. There's no reason not to use it. Einstein came along, theory of relativity replaced it. Something might replace that. But even on a small scale, it's still fine to use Newtonian physics. Absolutely fine.
Of today to describe how the world works today, but if you extrapolate it indefinitely into the past, you come with a contradiction. One has to be thrown under the bus or the other being thrown under the bus. Which one do you do that to? And I think, to me, the fact that they both work hand in glove today tells me as a...
Look, I will appreciate any lick I can get, quite frankly. Lick whatever button you want. I'm all for it. Come on now. Thank you, Jedi. I appreciate it, buddy.
Scientist, as someone who knows something about logic and reasoning, that the universe, the origin of the universe defies a physical, natural explanation. It requires that there be some sort of creation event. It doesn't tell you who the creator is. That's the limitation of natural evolution.
Okay. So we're basically making a whole bunch of presuppositions here. So, you know, when he's saying, hey, like it goes back and describes a creation event, well, no, not really. So the Big Bang isn't the beginning of the universe so much it is the beginning of the expansion of the universe. So we're kind of saying, hey, if everything came from one point, things are compressed into that point and we can sort of trace it backwards. We don't know for sure that's the beginning of the universe. We don't know sort of 1 Planck second is the farthest we can go back. So anything beyond there, we just don't know. He could be correct, but what I take objection with is him basically saying, you know, we don't know who created the universe. Why is it a who? Where did you get the who from? Right? You know, it's a rhetorical question. We all know where he got the who from. He got it from his Bible. Okay, but there's no reason in science to think that it was a who and not a natural process or any other explanation out there. There's just as much reason scientifically to think that it was a god as to think it was a magic stone. There is exactly the same amount of evidence for both of them. So, you know, oh yeah, absolutely, Andrew, absolutely, buddy. Yes, yeah. I mean, there's some other models. There's some you know, child universes that Sean Carroll put out there. There's all kinds of models that would basically not. He's basically taking one of the models and saying, hey, it doesn't make sense under my paradigm. But the problem is that if you're going to do an internal critique of somebody's model, you can't insert your own theory of time. Like, you can't take a model that sort of is an eternal universe and insert a theory of time, because that's not what the model says.
Revelation given to you in Romans 1, 18, 19, and 20. It tells us that God's powerful and he exists, but it doesn't tell you anything more about him.
I still wonder, how do science...
It's powerful and exists, but it doesn't tell you any more about him. Then why are you saying him? Oh, it's Romans. Okay, I didn't know what that... I thought it was a quote by a scientist. No. Paul was not a scientist, I'll tell you that.
I still wonder, how do scientists today understand these fundamental principles and yet not believe in, like, somebody creating the heavens and the earth? This is the new, by the way, Defender Study Bible. I just got this from Master Books, the new Henry Morris Defender Study Bible. We have scientists today that are going, hello, this is the case, and other scientists going, yeah, but we can overcome that. I mean,
it's because you're presupposing in there. You're basically saying, hey, the universe, like, just say, let's just examine the Kalam for a second. It basically concludes the universe had a cause. You're saying, well, God is that cause, and then assigning all of these things to him. Even if that were the case, and we don't know that for sure, you don't know that it's a him You don't know. You're saying who. It is the underlying assumption that it is a conscious thinking being that's the problem. Like you need to show that. Please go ahead and show that. We can't just assume it. My unfinished journey member for 1 month. Thank you, Journey. How Nero and Mark and Keith Richards is a Time Lord. Look, I mean Keith Richards. I don't know how he has survived, but you know, maybe he is regenerating. Maybe.
What's going on there, and what have they come up with to try to overcome these fundamental laws that clearly point to a designer, a creator?
They don't. Even Dr. Danny Faulkner didn't say they point to a designer. He assumed that part, right? He basically said, hey, who created the universe? Why who? Go back a second. He just said there was a cause. Who did it? The who is begging the question. You're basically making an assumption you haven't shown.
Yeah, ever since the Big Bang became widely accepted a half century ago, there have been many attempts to talk about it. And I think one of the best expositions on that had to be Lawrence Krauss's book, A Universe from Nothing, came out in 2012, I believe. And the argument is that the universe, the total energy of the universe could be zero. And if the universe...
Yeah, so that's the important point, could be zero. And I do want to point out that Lawrence Krauss wasn't the first person to postulate this. He just wrote a book to explain it. Actually, it was Hawkins that really fleshed out this net zero universe model. So basically, you've got energy in the universe, and then sort of the negative is things like gravity. So it sort of says that the net total of the universe is going to come out between the positive and negative energy of gravity and other negative energy is zero, right? And that's sort of a hypothesis and one of the things that we've put out there, but it's not theory. But you know, why hasn't he mentioned Hawking? Well, you know, we know that Hawking was incredibly intelligent and did, you know, all kinds of amazing things on cosmology. So, you know, they're not going to point out, hey, this incredibly intelligent genius, you know, believed this as well. They're going to go for Krauss, who Christians don't like. They're playing to their audience, apparently.
has a total energy of zero, then it could pop into existence without violating the second law of thermodynamics, or the first law of thermodynamics, because you have zero energy. You start before the universe began, you had zero energy. Right. After it began, you still have zero energy. The problem is we see a tremendous amount of positive energy in the universe in the form of matter and in the form of light electromagnetic radiation. So where do you find all of that negative energy? Is it?
Yeah, black holes, the gravitational effects, you know, all of this kind of stuff. So the negative energy is gravity, essentially. So yeah, I mean, I'm not a physicist, but as far as I know, they basically say, well, the negative energy is gravity and antiparticles, basically. So there's a lot of it out there. It's not like they haven't gone, well, where do we find this negative energy? Oop, can't find it. Then it still exists somewhere. They've actually, you know, done work on this. You know, I'm not sure why he has yeah, and dark energy, yes, dark energy, but we don't know what that is. That's the thing. We don't know what that is. But yeah, you know, as far as I'm aware, they balance it out with gravity, essentially, gravitational effects. So it's weird that he's sort of talking about this hypothesis that sort of, you know, he's not aware of where they're finding the negative energy, because that's what, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not. As I said, I'm not a physicist, but I know that they've done papers on where to find this negative energy. Okay. Wow. The New Zealand 3 months ago challenges the maths on dark energy. Fair enough. Yeah, if they publish it, sure. And I mean, a lot of these things like dark energy, it really is a hypothesis. We don't know. Dark matter is a bit more reliable, but dark energy is kind of one of those things. There are people arguing for it, people arguing against it, but you know,
were to square the books, you know, balance the books on this. And it's very speculative how they do that. If you read Cross's book, and I have, you go through the book and the word might, may, could, all those kind of words.
Yeah, yeah. Might, may, could, because Lawrence Krauss isn't a creationist hack who's saying that God definitely did it. This is what you'll find with people that are actually experts in their field writing about possibilities. They're not going to say, if we don't know for sure, they're not going to say, this is what happened, because he's very aware that, you know, he hasn't shown it to be true. We're not afraid to say, hey, we don't know exactly how this would work. This is a possibility. But I mean, the idea that it might have been anything but God, throw these people into an absolute fury because they think they have the answer definitely. The problem is that they won't present evidence for their answer. They'll instead get angry and attack anybody that suggests otherwise. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Used over and over and over and over again. It's highly speculative.
That isn't a bad thing. It's highly speculative. That isn't a bad thing either. The problem is that when somebody is saying, hey, it could be this might have happened, it is possible that this happened, they're basically saying, hey, this is a possibility, we need to investigate this. It's better to trust them than somebody who's saying, look, trust me, bro, it was a god, but I can't show it because God's mysterious and you've just got to believe, bro. One of those people is being honest, and one of them is just sort of, you know, having blind faith. Do you want to guess which one you are?
Interpretation of some questionable things in the interpretation of philosophy of physics. And it's just sad to me that people will stake their eternal destinies gambling on that hope that maybe they might be right about the intuition of what physics lies ahead of us.
Yeah, so, and this is a problem. You basically already said, like, the problem is people will stake their eternal existence. How do you know that exists? All of that is based upon your religious faith. None of this is scientific. It is absolutely criminal how little this man has to show when he is, you know, speaking to an audience. He is trying to tell what scientific truths are. He just basically goes, well, we all know that your soul is in danger if you listen to this science stuff. Can you show that? No, of course not. Of course not.
And that's a foolish bargain to make, I think.
Wow, no doubt about that. For those of you that are not believers or you don't.
Yeah, so there is no reason to listen to this man on whether there is an immortal soul. Okay, they're just using him as an argument for authority. He's saying, hey, you've got an immortal soul. I'm a physicist, therefore trust me. No, that is not how science works, and these guys know it. This is religion. This is just religion. There's nothing more to it.
I believe in a higher power. I think the science would certainly point you that direction if you looked at it objectively, if you looked at it through the lens without preconceived ideas. And that's why, Dr. Markman, you talk.
So here's the hypocrisy, right? If you look at it through this lens without preconceived ideas, he says, as he has the preconceived idea about God. Science is all about not having preconceived ideas. What Eric is saying is basically only look at this stuff to lead you to one answer. And this is the problem with apologetics and the problem with, and I mean, I've got to admit, my opinion of Hovind the Lesser here has absolutely dipped since I've seen him lately. Because this is essentially going, have the conclusion first, only look at it through the lens of God is true. Only look at it that way. He's not saying look at it objectively. He's saying look at it as if you were believing it already. And that is just a terrible way to do things. But the reason why I called this the king of hypocrisy, I could not believe that he said, well, if you look at this objectively, you would believe in a God and not have preconceived ideas. When he is putting forward, you have to have the preconceived idea of God is true and God created the universe in order to even look at this. Like, the hypocrisy is stunning, just stunning. It's incredible, because you're basically saying, be objective, have no preconceived ideas, accept the preconceived ideas, the lens that I believe in. Stunning, absolutely stunning. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Young Earth creationists in general, and especially young Earth creationists, they do not have a sense of irony. They have no sense of irony. They have no sense of hypocrisy. They have absolutely no filter at all whatsoever. It's incredible.
About this all the time. All of us come to science with preconceived ideas. What would you say to somebody who's looking at it and they would say, no, Lawrence Krauss is right. The universe could come from nothing. That's totally possible.
Well, then they're appealing to things not in evidence. They say they want to be scientific about this, but they're saying, well, maybe
the hypocrisy. They're appealing to things not in evidence, says the guy who is appealing to God. Not just not in evidence, but not possible to be in evidence ever, and relies on faith to believe. Like, this is the thing. This is the hypocrisy of these people. Oh, the people appealing to a universe from nothing, or saying it could be a possibility, are appealing to things not in evidence. But trust me, God exists. Are you serious? Wow.
the universe works this way. Maybe there's these fields out there. We don't have no evidence for them. Maybe the universe is arranged this way.
Well, so quantum fields, I think he's talking about. Quantum field, they're kind of a model, like the laws of physics and all of this stuff. We're kind of trying to model how these quantum particles work. So yeah, quantum fields, so you have these things that we kind of, in philosophy, they're kind of called pseudo-concretes. They're kind of things that are not objectively real, but they describe real things in a very, very, very accurate way. So they kind of seem like they're concrete, like maths, for instance, and numbers. That they seem like they're a real objective thing, but they're kind of not. They're just a description of how the universe works. So nobody can show you a 2. It's not a real thing, but they kind of do describe real things themselves. So it's important to realize that quantum fields may not, they may be an abstraction to describe how quantum particles work. But that doesn't mean that they're not accurately describing how quantum particles work, that it is perturbations and disruptions and sort of differences in a quantum foam or a quantum field that is what's causing all of this. So it's kind of like he's sort of saying, hey, we haven't demonstrated the field to exist. Yeah, but field equation theories work very well to describe how quantum particles behave. So there must be something there that is accurately describing reality. He's sort of just doing an argument from ignorance, like we don't know how exactly this works, so God
works this way, so the total energy of the universe is 0. Well, that's a faith statement. That is a faith statement, and it's not.
No, it's not. It's a hypothesis. That's the thing. He's not saying he believes it on faith and it can't be wrong. Like, that's what you're doing. You're like, well, I have faith in God. And here's the hypocrisy. That's exactly what Faulkner is doing. He's like, well, who created the universe? Because he's got faith that a God did it. He doesn't have evidence of that. He hasn't got evidence of a God. He hasn't got evidence that a God did it. He's taking it on faith. And that's the problem.
No different, really, than your faith statement and my faith statement, that there is a creator that's created the world around us. There's an absolute equality between those two when it comes to logic in itself.
No. So there's basically math done to support the idea of a zero state universe. It isn't theory. We haven't said, hey, yes, we know it's true, but it's a hypothesis. And, Hawking worked on it. Krauss worked on it. We're trying to find out if it's correct. We don't just believe it out of the blue. We basically have maths and tests and physics and physicists doing experiments to try and validate whether that is true or not. But, it's not the same as, well, I have a book that says God did it, so God did it. That is not remotely on the same playing field, because you know what? They published their work and had other people replicate. No one's publishing the Bible and having people replicate. It doesn't even fall within the scientific process. And that's why it's not just faith. Because A, they don't believe it because of, the truth of it, just because they have faith. It's because they have a lot of evidence for it. But also they don't sort of say that it is a unquestioned truth. They say, hey, this is a possibility. And Faulkner said that himself in Krauss's books. He was using a lot of, well, it could be this. It is possible for this. This could be possible. It's a lot of qualifiers to that. That's not faith. Faith is saying, yeah, I believe it. He's saying, hey, it's a possibility. This is plausible. That's not faith in action. That's saying, hey, is this a possibility?
And also an absolute equality when it comes to science, because they're trying to invoke things that are not, I repeat, not in evidence.
Says the man who God is not in evidence. Now, hello, Robin. Robin strikes with a new membership. Thank you so much, Robin. I hope you're well. It's great to see you again. Thank you so much, Robin. And I hope everything's going well. I haven't seen you for a while, I must admit. So I hope everything's going all right. Robin, absolute friend of the channel, done fantastic things. Thank you so much.
So one of the things I've heard, because you mentioned the fine-tuning of the universe, hey, the universe is so fine-tuned. I mean, these laws are exact. If you change the law of gravity or the conservation of energy, any of these laws, if you change them just a tiny bit, the universe doesn't exist. And so
well, our universe doesn't exist. We don't know what would exist. We don't have any kind of way to reasonably examine what would happen if any of these laws were different. It certainly wouldn't be the universe as we know it. Absolutely. Happy to sort of say that. It may be that the universe wouldn't form at all if they were different. We don't know. We don't know. So we're not saying that no universe would exist. We're not saying that a universe would exist if you change them. Maybe it would have collapsed upon itself. Maybe it would have collapsed and then re-expanded with different variables. We don't know. This is the thing. We're not saying that we know, but you're saying you do. That a God created this universe and altered those constants to be what they are. That's the problem. But we have no idea. I don't think anything. Oh, really? James Fordway. He's really good as far as I remember. Yeah. Yeah, and sort of the problem with fine-tuning, and Hawkins himself said, if the universe is fine-tuned for anything, it's fine-tuned for the creation of black holes. The fine-tuning problem is that an overwhelming majority of the universe just is absolutely hostile for life. Oh, you were on 2 years? Oh, that's terrible. That's okay, Robin. Look, Robin, every time you do a member chat, and if you do have a member chat, send them out there. I love getting the member chats. They're awesome. I will say it's 2 years. I will just lie. I'll just lie about the amount of time, and you said it was about 2 years. That's fine. We'll all remember, okay, Robin? We'll all remember that when it, if it says 1 month, it's a lie. It's 2 years and 1 month. Member for 19 months. There you go. There you go. That's what we like to see. Thank you so much, Robin. You are absolutely amazing. There you go. It supported you. Oh, Jess, the trans metal alchemist. Awesome gifted readerships. Now I've got to do this in my best Fight Club voice. Look, it continued your membership. Yeah. So that went to Chris Peacock, Per Aspera Ad Astra, Mark Lee, Echoplexia, Gaming, Logan, Fisher. Thank you so much, Jess. That is amazing. You trans metal alchemist, you. Enjoy your emotes and other benefits, people. Thank you so much. I really have to update my member thank you at the end of this as well. I really have to do that. I want to do it so badly. Got to find some more music and stuff. Got to find another banger for you people. Got to find another banger. And Jester coming through with the member for 16 months. Robin's been a longer member than me, just quietly. Robin's probably been a longer member than me. She was a fan before I even started the channel, I believe. So, Robin's ahead of everybody. I think Robin caught me on Modern Day Debate before I was even doing a channel. So, Robin outlasts all of us, quite frankly. If anything, this should be Robin's channel. That really should be the case. But much love, Robin, and thank you, Jester. I really appreciate it, mate. I really do. That is awesome, and I thank you.
People have come up with the idea of the multiverse theory, that maybe there are an infinite number of universes out there. And if one of them, if there's an infinite number, one of them had to get these laws right. The multiverse theory, real or ridiculous? Which one?
Yeah, half a century ago, a man named Brandon Carter coined this thing called the anthropic principle, that the universe appears to be designed for our existence. And Barrow and Tipler, a decade or so later, wrote the book, the anthropic principle, describing all about it. And
well, I mean, the universe definitely isn't designed for our existence. Almost all of it is absolutely hostile to our existence, and that's one of the problems with the God hypothesis. It can't even, to be honest with you, God doesn't even rise to a hypothesis. But anyway, I'll call it the God hypothesis, is that if you're saying all of this universe was created and fine-tuned for humans, not only is the universe insanely hostile to us, like the amount of area that we could possibly live on is almost nothing. Most of the world is hostile to human existence. Without technology, we would be confined to the savannas of the world, basically. We even just to go north into any kind of subarctic climate, we need technology, we need furs, we need all of this stuff. So why is it that if things are suited to us, that's fine tuning, but when things are hostile to us, it isn't evidence against it? And there's also the case that the constants could be better, right? Like, we're on the edge, sort of the outer bit of the Goldilocks zone of the sort of, the Earth could be positioned better in order to accommodate humans better. So why is it that things being convenient to us are evidence for a God doing it, but when we say, hey, it could have been in a better position, that's not evidence against? Surely that's evidence against if there is a better way it could be. I don't know why. Deviant Outcast, meant for 10 months. 10 months isn't 19 months. It takes Robin to be Robin. Absolutely, it takes Robin to be Robin. Yes, and I'm glad. I wouldn't like there to be any fake Robins out there. It would be ridiculously bad. But thank you, Deviant. I appreciate it. And Left Out a Jedi for 2 American buckaroos. We have a sample size of 1 universe. Yeah, so this goes to, fine-tuning. And so this is the teleological argument, the fine-tuning argument, sort of saying, hey, things seem very convenient for us. The whole point is that they will say, hey, statistically it couldn't happen, but we don't know the statistics of it happening. The sample size is 1 universe. And, if you take planets, it's just 1 planet. We don't know if life exists on any other planet. If life does exist on another planet, if we do find evidence of life, that will be a problem for the creationists, an absolute problem. Because, if life can flourish under varying different conditions, then the fine-tuning... they used to think it was even more fine-tuned, but we sort of understand that life can exist in places we thought it couldn't. it can actually cope with being on the inside of a nuclear reactor. There's bacteria that live on the inside and, you know, are fine with radioactivity. It's actually pretty robust. But yeah, a sample size of 1. How did you get at this improbability? And we don't know if there's any other samples out there. That's the whole point. He's talking about multiverse. Nobody is saying that they know that there are multiple universes out there. They're saying it could be possible. Sean Carroll, I think, made this thing about parent and child universes, like multiple universes that are child of one parent universe. We don't know. Nobody is claiming to know on the scientific side whether multiverse is true or not. We don't, like, the math works. If we add all of these other things, the math works, but that doesn't mean it's the case. It just means that the math works. Yeah, and that's a good point, Jess. It used to be, you know, how come humans are so suited for our environment kind of thing, you know, and they abandoned it, which, you know, it's interesting. And I brought this up before, that these creationists, they always like when, you know, saying, hey, there's no way the eye could be designed, not designed, sorry, there's no way the eye could have evolved kind of thing. And they use this complexity argument. When we find out how they do it, they just move on to the next thing. They don't acknowledge that, hey, we were wrong about this. Could we be wrong about the other stuff? No, they just move on to whatever's next. So they're just going to gaps in human knowledge to say, hey, you don't know why this universe is suitable for life, therefore God. It is a God of the gaps argument. Like, we don't know if there's any other universes. We don't know why the universe appears fine-tuned, because appears and is are not the same thing, because definitely humans are not fine-tuned for the earth as we thought before. Definitely not. Absolutely not. We're evolved for the savannah, and that's all. Like, humans kind of suck at everything except a couple of things. Humans absolutely suck. Our hearing is terrible. Our sense of smell is terrible. Our sight is all right. It's pretty good with a couple of, you know, problems here and there. You know, but overall, humans are weak. They're frail. They're not very survivably tough. They're not good at digging or any kind of physical labor or anything like that. They kind of suck, except in the cognition department, obviously. And that one thing has allowed us. Oh, and the other thing is endurance running. We're pretty good at endurance running. We are really good at cognition, and sort of, you know, one of the channels that I watched was kind of like, you know, humans spec'd in the intelligence stat. You know, we're an intelligence build, basically. And I love the way it was talking about it like it's a computer game, like you have these builds. And like, we're the intelligence build, which was insanely successful and, you know, just incredibly successful in what we do. So, but the whole idea that it was fine-tuned for us is nonsense. It's nonsense. We can't go beneath the water. We can't survive in the Arctic. We're very unsurvived. Intelligence, but not wisdom. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. So, Shaken Fist is talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Intelligence is like your book learning. Wisdom is like your street smarts. How wise it is to look. Wisdom was not our look. Wisdom was probably our dump stat, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, humans suck in everything but intelligence, and that has been the sort of that has been the thing that has allowed us to become the one of the most dangerous organisms on this planet. It's really that specialization.
Like 1,100 pages in that book, and they went all the way through everything about.
Jester for $5 says, if I'm fine-tuned for anything, it's mental and health and physical breakdowns. I'm pretty sure I'm due for at least 12 maintenance issues. I'm sorry to hear that, Jester. All the best, my friend. I'm not sure if you're joking. You often do, but much love out there for you. Look, it's amazing how often, like, we all go and we go to the doctor and have a checkup. how many of you do a mental health checkup? How many of you go to a therapist and say, hey, I'm just here for a checkup? Like, I'm just here to go through some things in my life and talk a little bit about it, see if I'm coping okay. It's weird that we go for physical checkups, we don't go for mental health checkups. Anyone else find that weird? Because I do. I find that odd. And I probably need one myself, Jester, honestly, mate. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that. You should get checkups, both physically and mental. And I probably have to do both. So I'm a complete hypocrite as well. Pass over your crown, Eric Hovind. I'm a hypocrite because I'm probably neglecting mine as well. But it's a good reminder, you know. Hill Hugger member for 23 months. Okay, we're taking the channel off Robin and giving it to Hill Hugger, who seriously, dude, that's insane. So thank you so much. That's almost 2 years. Almost 2 years. Who says the universe is fine-tuned for cow farts and sand. Okay, methane and sand. Yeah, well, I mean, I see a lot of it. I see a lot of sand. Yeah, there is a stigma, and there shouldn't be, GG. There shouldn't be. And yeah, that's awesome, Archer. I totally, I'm on board. You know, I totally think that some you know, if you go to see somebody, fantastic. I'm all I'm all for it.
The anthropic principle, and they got done. They said it just appears to be that way. You got all the evidence in the world in front of you, and you dismiss it. It just looks that way, but it really isn't designed at all. But now they've gone to this idea of multiverse from several different.
Well, hold on a second. We know that sort of organisms, even if you don't believe in evolution and just adaptation or microevolution, basically, because adaptation is not the right word, but microevolution, you have to concede that organisms that spend time in an environment will become adapted to that environment. Like, do we not, even okay, so let's just assume that moths can't be anything but moths. Okay, I think that's stupid, but like, let's just assume that. You would still admit that moths that, say, you know, like in England, that the coal burning made the trunks of trees dark, that the moths will become predominantly dark because of changes in the allele frequency. Like, we all agree on that, right? That if you know, an organism is a, oh, I don't know, a you know, squirrel or whatever, and that squirrel gets their environment flooded, that they'll become more adapted to water environments. Like, we agree on that, right? Like, even if you don't think macroevolution is a thing, I don't understand. Like, that's weird. That's weird, because it looks to us like that organism is sort of made for that environment, but it's not. It's just that it's changed to suit the environment that it's in. Wow.
Directions to get there. But the idea is that there's a multitude, an infinity of universes out there, new universes possibly popping into existence all the time. And so if you have an infinite number of universes, it shouldn't be surprising that at least a few of them would be conducive to life. If you shuffle the cards long enough, something good will come out of that deck of cards. And it's not surprising then we're in such a universe, because we couldn't exist in any other one. So
yeah, tardigrades are eukaryotes. Yeah, so they're not prokaryotes, they're eukaryotes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they're tough little buggers too. They absolutely can survive in all kinds of environments that we didn't expect. This is what I'm saying. Like, we sort of assume that life can only exist in the kind of environments we find on Earth, but tardigrades seem to be bucking that. They can shut down in space and survive in space. Like, it is actual, you know, they're incredibly durable. They can survive complete dehydration and things like that. It's actually incredible what they can survive. So those little water bears are pretty damn cool.
all the huge number of universes out there, there are only a handful of those, a small percentage that actually support life and have life. So that's That's what they mean by appearing to be designed. It really isn't. It's just a random thing. But of course, again, they're invoking something that's not in evidence. We have no evidence that there is a multiverse.
Yeah, that's why we're saying we don't believe there's a multiverse. Like, we don't think that that is the case, but we don't think it's a case that there's a God either. We're saying, hey, there is a greater plausibility of a multiverse, because when you actually put the math in, it supports multiple iterations and multiple dimensions, right? Like dimensionality, I think it was 11 or 12 dimensions, but we don't know that for sure. We're not saying we know it for sure. You're saying you know it was God for sure, and it's not in evidence. So, which one of us is being more honest? The people that say, hey, it is possible that it could be a multiverse, right? Or the person saying, hey, it definitely is God. Both of those things are not in evidence, right? We don't have enough evidence to support either of them. But one of us is saying they know and one of us isn't. That's the issue.
We have the evidence of this one universe we live in.
So
I don't think it's ridiculous that the math does math. It does work, but that just because the math works doesn't mean it is actually the case. Like the math sort of sorts itself out when you add all these other dimensions, but that doesn't mean that it is the truth. It's just the math works.
Oh, no evidence of multiverse. They use it because they're trying to get rid of the design principle.
I think ultimately that's what's behind it. Now, a lot of them.
Yeah, you think that's what's behind it, and it's not. We don't have to get rid of the design principle because the design principle isn't established as a thing. Okay, it's just your claim that it's all designed. You've got to show that and not just say, well, that's the default and you're trying to get rid of it. We don't have to get rid of it because it isn't in the scientific literature in the first place. There's no reason to get rid of it. We can say, hey, it's a possibility that it was designed. Sure, it's possible there's a God. There's nothing logically against that, but we don't believe it, just like we don't believe it was a multiverse. It is a possibility. But you have to show it is the case, because we're not claiming that multiverse is the actual way that the universe is. You're the one claiming that it is the God that did it, so you've got to show that.
Dressed it up. As I said, you can reach it from several different directions, but I think the goal there is to get around the difficulty they have with this universe we're in.
All right, how about this one? In the realm of modern physics, real or ridiculous? Time travel to the past, real or ridiculous?
Well, I was going to tell a time travel joke, but I saw that none of your audience thought it was funny, so I won't tell the joke. Time travel is a fanciful thing. It's a good device for
experiments in prebiotic chemistry for $5. Hey everybody, I found this great channel which I would like to advertise. It's called The Open Question on YouTube. Okay, I'm game. The Open Question. Okay, cool. All right, I will share this. So this apparently is the open question. I'm always willing to advertise, especially when I'm paid for it. Thank you so much. Experiments in prebiotic chemistry. Thank you. This is the open question. I tell you what, I'll drop a link in the chat because you are so kind. Cheers, mate. The Open Question. I'm figuring it's an atheist channel. Why God doesn't exist. Why intelligent people are leaving religion. Yeah, man, I'd love to do videos like this. I really would. I kind of, my ADHD really kicks my ass. I've got real good ideas, but kind of thing. I think I will try and start. That's cool though. I like it. All right, here we go. Subscribed. Yeah, we've got. I'll even turn notifications on. I'm feeling great today. I don't know if I told you that. I'm feeling absolutely fantastic today. Oh, no problem at all, mate. No problem. But thank you very much. I really appreciate your $5 American dollars. America dollars.
Just got it. I just got it. I was gonna.
So if that joke, by the way, I want to show you this joke because I don't know. This guy's fake as fuck, quite frankly. He's so fake.
Ridiculous.
Well, I was going to tell a time travel joke, but I saw that none of your audience thought it was funny, so I won't tell the joke. Time travel.
So his joke was, I was going to tell a time travel joke, but I saw none of your audience liked it, so I decided not to tell it. That's the joke. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's not hilarious either. Like it's okay. I still use dollary doos. Yes, look. Don't hassle the dollary doos. Okay.
Is a fanciful thing. It's a good device for a.
Just got it. I just got it. I was going to tell, but I already saw you. Oh, that was good. That was good. It took me a second on that one, Doc. Oh, it's so good.
Your reaction was priceless. I thought you didn't get it, but you'll get it eventually.
I'm like, he must have. Oh, that's what he's saying.
It's okay. It was okay. It just I don't think it was as funny as Eric is making it out to be. You know, like he's absolutely okay.
That was good.
We may have to rewind that later. What did he actually say there? Anyway, I think Henny Youngman came up with that joke years ago, so it wasn't to me originally. But at any rate,
that's so good.
The people discuss time travel quite a bit.
Right.
And it's been a theme of many science fiction stories over the years and fantasy stories. But that's what it is, fantasy and science fiction. I think it's pretty clear that
nobody's saying that time travel is possible or is impossible. So the one that I saw that basically said the way that we could create a time machine. Okay, so if wormholes exist, and we think that they do, there is we can link two parts of space-time. If you can send one end of the wormhole away at the speed of light and then back at the speed of light, time will pass slower for the end of the wormhole approaching the speed of light, right? That's basically true, because if something approaches the speed of light, time will slow for it. We've absolutely proven that. Relative to the other side, right? Time doesn't actually slow for it. It's not like things are in slow motion. It's just time runs slower relative to the other side. Then you've got a wormhole with one end in the present and one end's perspective is in the past, right? And that is a plausible way to do. I mean, obviously it relies on, as Wandering Traveler points out, it does rely on stabilizing a wormhole, and it also relies on accelerating one end of that wormhole to it's sort of theoretical. Like, it really is just, well, if we could do this, that's what we would have. But whether that can even be done is up in the air. So it may not be possible, but that's sort of one of the ways they've postulated. The crux is, though, you can't travel back further than when the wormhole first existed or first started traveling away at the speed of light, because time will still pass, in the flow of time will still pass. So it's not really time travel. Do we accept American immigrants? Yeah, I'm sure we do. Yeah, we accept immigrants from all over the world. Love immigrants. Like, immigrants are awesome. Awesome people. There's been, in my area, there's immigrants from Asia, China, Vietnam, Korea, immigrants from Africa, immigrants from there's a ton of them, and Australia's sort of multicultural, and it's fantastic. It's awesome.
There's this direction in time, they call it times arrow, gets you back to this E word, entropy, that's been called times arrow. It tells you which direction that the universe works, only in a forward direction. And
it's that's true, but the problem is that the scenario that I gave, where you have a wormhole with one end is lagging behind the other because of how fast it moved, that doesn't violate time's arrow, right? You're not actually trapped. Like, he's got this A theory of time, that it is this linear thing that all moves the same throughout the universe, and we know that's not true. We know that being close to a object that is a gravity well will slow your clock relative to everything else's. So we've done this by having a clock on Earth, like a very, very precise molecular clock on Earth, and one in orbit. And as further you get away from the gravity well, the faster time runs. relative to the one on Earth. And this is relativity, right? So, you know, he sort of has this idea of a very constant thing all throughout the universe when that is not the case. Also, acceleration towards the speed of light will slow your clock relative to everything else's. It doesn't mean that you can't create something that goes back in time. It's that, you know, it's just a different way of thinking about time. But he seems really on this A theory, I guess. I'm not sure, but that from what he's saying, it really describes A theory, which we're fairly sure is not right. Like B theory is relativity, and you know, this idea that space-time can be squeezed, it can be expanded. It really is very, very fluid and changeable, but only relative to everything else.
So there is absolutely no way, knowing what we know about the world around physics, that would allow you to go back in time. If you could time travel, it would require a total revolution in physics. I can't say, I'm not clairvoyant. I can't tell you what the future holds, obviously. But unless something dramatically changes, time travel is just a fancy idea that has no basis in reality.
Okay, so you would put that.
Well, yeah. I mean, we have postulated some possibilities, but no one's saying, "Hey, time travel is possible. I know how." Like, he's talking like the claims saying, "Hey, here's some plausible ways with technology in some far-flung future you could plausibly create a temporal wormhole to the past, and hey, God exists, created everything, and you should believe it." There's no like equal status of those things. They're claiming they know, right? They're claiming they absolutely know. It's ridiculous that they're sort of saying, hey, these two things, our speculations on time travel and their outright knowledge claim that a God created the universe are equal size claims. Absolutely not. Ridiculous.
That one on the ridiculous side. That kind of brings up another thing that we had somebody, what was his name? Dr. He did a whole book on light and electromagnetism. Fascinating conversation with him. And he's talking about the speed of light. So real or ridiculous, speed of light, constant, not constant. Where in physics are we with this? One of the things he said, by the way, was speed of light is, and it kind of gets me to general relativity. You did an article on this recently for Answers in Genesis. Can we ever reach the speed of light, or once the speed of light, is it measured from your location? Anyway, fascinating stuff on the speed of light. Where are we at, real or ridiculous, on the speed of light when it comes to physics today?
Okay, we know quite a bit about the speed of light. You kind of melded several questions together there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite so ridiculous. The speed of light could have been different in the past, particularly if you're going to invoke a miracle like I would on day 4 to explain the light travel time problem. But I think most people are thinking in terms of a natural explanation. How could you do that in the world? And the problem with that, a couple of problems. But the biggie, I think, is the fact that light is not, the speed of light is not just some constant that's arbitrarily fixed. It depends upon two fundamental quantities that govern the universe. One is what's called the permittivity of free space, and the other is called the permeability of free space. And those two respectively govern the strength of electrical interactions and magnetic interactions. If you change either one of those, you can change the speed of light, but you're also going to change the structure of matter, because electrons orbit around the nucleus of the atom under that attraction between opposite charges between the electrons and the protons.
Yeah, he did say miracle. Yeah, so he explains. So he's got to believe, and here's the rub, right? So the problem is for young Earth creationists is if they want to adhere to science, you've got to say, well, light coming from these stars is this old, because if light travels at, I think it is 300,000 kilometers per second, right? Like that is the fastest anything can move in the universe. 300,000 kilometers a second, or close to, basically. So if light travels at that speed, then the light from all of those stars, the distance they are away, it must be incredibly old, right? Like incredibly old, like billions of years old, where we're essentially looking into the past. The problem is that they think the world is 6,000 years old. So essentially they've got to overcome the maximum speed of light. So Einstein said that the maximum speed of light, it's the fastest anything can move. It is the limit on the universe, if you will. But they have to believe that the light has to travel faster because it gets here from those stars. And so it doesn't work if light is not showing up almost instantaneously. The universe can't be 6,000 years old. He is invoking a miracle, which is weird, right? And we know why it's weird. It's because earlier he was going, oh, they believe things are not in evidence. Well, A, we don't believe them. They're just hypotheses. And two, you've just invoked a miracle to get around a problem with your own model, that basically magic got around it. And this is a problem because, you know, that's not just not in evidence. That is literally, we have nothing to support that whatsoever. Not math, not anything. Just trust me. That is absolutely ridiculous. And it sort of goes against the uniformity of nature. The idea that nature has constant laws that we can sort of, you know, take apart and will be constant throughout their time. So he's got a problem here, right? That he's basically saying, hey, I use my magic card to get around it, which, you know, is incredibly unscientific. And this is what the Enlightenment tried to get out of science. It basically was saying, hey, you can't pull in God or magic or miracles or witchcraft or any of these things into science. We want to get that out and say, okay, let's do methodological naturalism. Let's just explain everything with natural means. Wow. So yeah, it went by real fast. I got you. But yes, it is basically invoking a miracle, which is wild to me.
Protons in the nucleus. And also, as they do that, they create a current which produces a magnetic field. You get a magnetic moment with orbiting electrons and spinning electrons, for that matter. And if you do that, that's going to change the structure of matter because of the other constant.
Right. So he's basically saying that there is no way you can change the speed of light without changing the fundamental structure of these atoms and these particles that are involved. Like, you know, in order to have light travel at that speed, you've kind of got to sort of, if that's a constant throughout the universe, all of matter in the universe changes. So if you have a universe that is changed so that light speeds up and somehow breaks the limit of c, which is the speed of light, and this is important. So the limit of c is speed of light in a vacuum, right? So it's basically a constant of speed of light in a vacuum. It doesn't say anything else about other things. It doesn't say anything else about other particles being in there. It's in a vacuum. So yeah, it's kind of like, well, if you can speed it up beyond there somehow, then if the speed of light is changed in the universe to be that, then particles are completely different. And the way that particle interactions occur is really different. So it's just not possible to have the universe we are in if the speed of light increases.
It was quite a revolution in 1860s when a man, a Scottish physicist named James Clerk Maxwell, actually was able, he was trying to explain electrical and magnetic phenomena in a single theory, and he succeeded. But then when he solved the equation, simultaneously out-tumbled this wave equation of alternating electric and magnetic fields, and it had the predicted measured speed of light. And he just rightly wrote, this hardly seems to be an accident or a coincidence. It was a huge revolution. It told us what the nature of light was, and it took physicists half a century to come to grips with that reality, and I don't think we totally have yet. It was an amazing thing. I think the best physics theory we have is Maxwell's theory. So you can't just change the speed of light to suit you. You'd have to change everything, and that's the main reason why I'm very critical of the notion that the speed of light has changed over time.
Right. So he's basically saying, hey, he's got to invoke magic for the universe being young, because the speed of light as it is completely blows that out of the water. It completely destroys it, because you can't have the speed of light at the constant rate and have a young universe. It can't be done, right? So he has to basically appeal to literally magic to overcome it. And you can sort of see how crestfallen Eric Hovind is. He's kind of going, because he wants him to say, hey, there's a scientific reason why we're right, instead of, hey, there's a scientific reason we're wrong, which is what he just said.
Interesting. So what about the idea? Have we in the lab kind of sped light up and slowed light down based on different, physical changes? Have we done that in the lab? When I've seen articles about that, have they really sped it up or slowed it down? Or like, what's the truth about that?
I think it was about a decade ago. There was a news item about stopping light in the lab in an experiment. Yeah. And it took me a while to sort through that. And so many of these stories just get garbled in the reporting. You can have in a wave bundle, a bundle of light going along, you can have two things going on. You can have the phase velocity and the actual speed of light going on. And so you can get this speed of light beam going along like this, but within it, you can have this other phase velocity, like a carrier wave going on. And what they actually did is they were able to slow down and momentarily stop the phase velocity, but the speed of light continued. So it was less than what was meant to go there. I mean, it was quite a revolution to be able to stop the phase velocity. That was interesting, but it didn't stop the speed of light. That was the problem.
Okay, so looking into this, and again, I'm not a physicist, but it seems like they there was stuff done in 2025 that it seems like they have sort of there was one back in 2009, I think it was, that was sort of it basically had what he's saying, but there was a later thing that sort of said, hey, they're able to basically slow down and stop light in a certain state by using basically almost absolute zero, essentially. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but it doesn't really matter, okay? And I'll explain why. It's because Einstein basically said that nothing travels faster than the speed of light in a vacuum in C, right? That basically is the limit. He didn't say anything about slower, okay? But slower does not help them, okay? So think about it. If you've got stars that are, 13 billion light years away, if you're slowing down the speed of light, they're getting older, okay? They're not getting younger. Okay, so this is like even if light can be slowed, that's not enough. It's not enough because exactly. They can change it by causing it to travel through some medium, but the absolute speed of light doesn't change. Yes, correct. The relative speed of light, yes. C is constant, yes, that is the speed of light through a vacuum. But if you put it in some other medium and basically freeze its ass, like you can change its speed relative to other things, but not the constant speed of light. But the important thing is, even if you could slow it down, that is not helpful to what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that the light got here within 6,000 to 10,000 years. They need the light faster, not slower, right? They need the light to come at us within 6,000 years from 14.6 billion light years away. They need it to come faster. So saying, hey, these researchers have slowed down light in a lab doesn't help them. It makes it worse. That if light can be slowed, then it would have taken longer to get to us, right? Because, it would to us, that would be relatively slowing down. So even if it was true that you could slow not just the phase velocity, but also the constant of speed of light, it doesn't help them at all. In fact, it hinders them because light can only be slower than C, which is the constant speed of light in a vacuum, right? It's only going to get slower from there. What you need to show is that light can exceed C, the speed of light in a vacuum, and they haven't. So there is nothing to suggest that light got to us in a shortened amount of time, which is why Dr. Danny Faulkner here has to basically appeal to some magic to do it, because it certainly doesn't hold with the laws of physics as we understand them.
Okay.
Do you
And
feel
then that,
misled? I felt misled when I found out what was really going on.
well, I do now that you say that. I mean, it's because I've heard, hey, they've sped it up, they slowed it down. So we basically can't have the speed of light as a constant. And I thinking through the different gravitational time dilation, Humphreys, I think to the different ways to talk about the speed of light. And I go, should we be saying that the speed of light is a constant, or should we not be holding to that? Or should we be saying that, like you said, it depends on certain principles, permeability and
permittivity, free space.
Yeah. Is that,
permeability.
Is that something that, like, inside of our galaxy versus outside of our galaxy, inside of our solar system versus outside? Like, how do we?
If you
inside of our solar system versus outside, is he going to appeal to, hey, no one's ever checked the speed of light outside of our solar system? Oh, come on, mate. Like, seriously? That's your reach? That's your reach. Oh, dear. Uncertain. Creation Ministries lists him as a doctor of astrology. Rational Wiki, which I just checked in with to see if he was listed, which he was, lists him as a doctor of philosophy of astronomy. Sorry, astronomy, not astrology. Astronomy. So he definitely is a credentialed doctor. I'm not quite sure in what, to be honest with you. It seems to differ, but it is surrounding astronomy. Absolutely. But, you know, this whole thing isn't looking good for Eric, because he's trying to suggest that, no, not astrology. That's me misspeaking. No, GG, stop. Look, it only gets worse for them. If you can slow down light, but the idea that light somehow travels differently outside the solar system, I mean, to accuse us of using faith and then saying that, come on, man, like, seriously?
change those constants, it would change across the universe anywhere. Like, for instance, if you changed it here locally, but didn't change it, didn't change, it'd be a real problem.
Yeah, it'd be a real problem, wouldn't it? Yeah. If you changed it, outside of our solar system, but didn't change it here, yeah, that would be a massive problem. Like, yeah. I don't know, but you have philosophy of sciences, and that sort of studies the scientific method. So yeah, it is a thing, just
because when we look out and we see this light coming from stars, what we see in the spectra of stars and distant galaxies depends upon those constants being close to what they are now. So if the speed of light had changed sometime else in the universe, or some other time in the universe, it would show up in the light that we're receiving.
Okay. So speed of light being a constant, you put on the real. And the idea that it could change, or that it is being changed, that kind of falls on the ridiculous side, because it would change something. Okay.
Well, yeah, and that absolutely blows out of the water your scientific claim that the universe is 6,000 years old. Absolutely debunks it. It's nonsense. The universe is 6,000 years old. Like, Eric is relying on saying, well, the light got to us faster. That's why he was sort of saying, hey, it could have been changed outside the solar system. And Dr. Danny Falk says, no, it can't be. But, that's why he has to appeal to magic and miracles. Because if light travels at that amount of time, then the universe is 14.6 billion years old. Like, it just is. Sorry, Eric. I mean, this is hilarious, because you've had this guy on to sort of debunk all the scientists, and you've ended up debunking your own Christian claims here, the young Earth creationist claims, which is hilarious. Because then you've got to go to, well, we've got the conclusion. The conclusion is that God did it and the universe is 6,000 years old. So now we've got to insert some magic somewhere. And you accuse us of having faith beliefs. It's actually hilarious.
All right.
I think so.
Here's another one.
Some people are going to disagree with me, but that's okay.
Okay. They have the right to be wrong. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
I know you did. I hear that.
Yeah. So you're wrong, Eric. You're wrong. Yeah, absolutely. He borrowed light speeding up from Kent. Yeah. And that's a problem. That's why Answers in Genesis and Creation Ministry, they don't like Kent Hovind that much. Right? They don't like Kent Hovind that much, because, his stuff like, the craters on the moon being caused, what was it? The lunar Bukaki theory, where the waters of the fountains of the deep opening shot asteroids, like rocks, into the sky and made the craters on the moon. Like, it is just like, you know, even if you are a young Earth creationist, you are going, no, come on. Like, Kent Hovind is amazing because he's terrible even for a young Earth creationist. Like, he is absolutely nonsensical.
I knew you were going to say that. I heard you say it before. In the future.
Okay, here's another one for me that I go. This is you watch Discovery or Nova, and man, they have these great videos with scientists with the perfect lighting, and it's a very compelling the way they talk about string theory. Real or ridiculous? Which one is string theory?
String theory was very popular 40 years ago. Now, for those of you who don't know, string theory is this idea that the universe has additional dimensions that are
yeah, that's not the funniest one. The funniest one is Kent Hovind solving. So if you're familiar with the heat problem, it's basically that radioactive decay, friction from tectonic forces, other sources of heat, if all of that was condensed into a young Earth, 6,000 to 10,000 years, and Gutsick Gibbon, Erica over at Gutsick Gibbon, she does an amazing explanation of this, really good, highly recommend. That would have made Earth basically a lava ball without being able to radiate the heat over a certain amount of time or use that energy for other purposes like evolution and, you know, all of the stuff going on. Then the Earth would be a molten ball over 6,000 years. So it's a real problem for the creationists. Kent solved it by saying that there was an ice canopy, a shell of ice around the Earth, cooling it down. Now, apart from the problem that how the hell would that work structurally? An ice, like solid thing of ice around the Earth. The number two thing is if sun is to get into the Earth, then the ice would have to be transparent. Okay, no problem. We have a word for what happens when shortwave radiation passes through something transparent, is transformed upon hitting something into longwave radiation or heat, and that is stopped by something transparent. It's called the greenhouse effect. Essentially, in order to solve the problem, Hovind describes a greenhouse made of ice being around the planet. And it doesn't matter that it's ice, because you can make an igloo to retain heat. That's ice, and it still retains heat because the heat is trapped in between the ice and, you know, the whatever heat source you've got. So in order to solve the heat problem, Kent creates a greenhouse around the Earth. I mean, he doesn't just not solve the heat problem, he actually makes it 10 times worse. Like, in order to, the guy is just incredible with his nonsense. Lava ball is quite generous. Yeah, absolutely. No, the heat problem. They had the young Earth creationists had this team called the Rate team. They basically tried to find out. There were a bunch of young Earth creationist scientists that tried to solve the heat problem. Eventually, they just had to concede, hey, there's probably something in the future that we will find to solve. Essentially, they said they couldn't solve it. It's incredible.
kind of, they come in triplets, I think, usually, and these others are kind of folded up and rolled up and kind of tucked away. I remember hearing when I first started graduate school in the late 70s at Clemson, they had a guy came in and gave a talk on this. And I think he said, hello, my name is so-and-so from such and such a place. And I didn't understand anything after that. He talked about the universe having 27 dimensions. And it wasn't until a few decades later I found out about string theory better. And I thought, oh, that's what that guy was talking about. And from the late 70s until really probably the early 90s, they shaved it down to just 6 additional dimensions that they wanted. It's trying to.
Yeah, last I heard it was 11 or something. Yeah, and sort of, so string theory, I don't like, it was sort of touted as the next big thing in physics. It's one of those examples of an idea in physics. It gets promoted, it gets talked about, it is really sort of touted as the next huge development, and it didn't really go anywhere. That they had the math for it, it seemed to work, but they couldn't really take it anywhere. Like, it just, you know, it's kind of a bit left by the wayside now. Nobody really is into string theory because while it looked good on paper, there's nothing to it. There's no there. So they kind of just said, well, we kind of overhyped this one. And I think that that's a good lesson about overhyping a hypothesis. You know, we have this hypothesis, it seems to work. You know, okay, that it never went anywhere. So what? I don't get the problem there.
Explain some certain things about how matter works. And if this theory was correct, then you had to have those extra dimensions. But in the universe we have today, they're going to be kind of very tiny, as I said, rolled up inside of matter, so we can't really detect them. Well, if you can't really detect them, it's not really testable, is it, by science? It'd be like saying I've got invisible gnomes that do things, that explain things I can't understand.
Yeah, and I agree with Faulkner here. You know, like scientific consensus at the moment is that string theory is not, you know, there's no way to test it. So, like many unfalsifiable things, yeah.
But how am I going to test for invisible gnomes? You know, that's the sort of problem you're up against. And I've detected over the last 20 years that that the attitude towards string theory has cooled tremendously. It was really popular in the 80s and early 90s, but I think it's waned a lot. So I wouldn't call it fanciful. I wouldn't call it too far out there to consider, but it is an idea, it's a theory that may be on the way out. And physicists, I think theoretical physicists are maybe casting around for something else.
Yeah, I think it is sort of being left behind by other theoretical concepts. I think that, you know, and that's the thing. You know, scientists are very willing to change their ideas if they're shown to not work. The question is, why aren't you willing to do the same? You just showed that, hey, the universe can't be 6,000 to 10,000 years old because of the speed of light. You have to appeal to literal magic changing the speed of light. Like, why aren't you changing your opinions? Because you have your conclusion first and then find the evidence to fit it later. And that's the problem with these guys.
So string theory is moving to the ridiculous, or it is ridiculous, and because of that, moving its way out of kind of our modern thinking or our modern explanations of things.
I wouldn't put it in the ridiculous category yet, but it's a passe idea in some respects. Now, maybe kind of revived, but everything's hot and heavy 20 years ago, 30 years ago about string theory, and now you just don't hear much about it.
Interesting. Okay. Our one of our partners from Canada, Rodney, is wondering, is it possible that astronomers looking at the results of the James Webb Space Telescope are, use the possible change in the speed of light to explain away the results that they've found so far? So going back to speed of light real quick, is that a possibility that they're trying to do that because of what the James Webb Space Telescope is observing that it wasn't supposed to see, so to speak?
I'm not aware of that, and I'm pretty certain they wouldn't be talking about way. That would be a radical thing to do. And again,
yeah, and so I don't see how that would work anyway. Slowing the speed of light sort of points to a older universe than what we think, not a younger one. So if they said they accelerated the speed of light past C, then maybe it could be in some world, a conspiracy theory, but that would just be hindering their own thing. That this is really them grasping at straws, because it doesn't help your position. It doesn't. Like, a slower speed of light is just, it looks younger than what it is. Okay.
And we're seeing spectra and things like that seem quite normal by our standards. So they need to go barking up a different tree for that one. Great question.
Okay. All right, one more before I gotta let my social media go. This is one that, okay, real or ridiculous? Which one is this? Dark matter, dark energy. I've heard people talk on both sides of this, and I'm going, okay. Let me go to the physicist and the astronomer. Doc, dark matter, dark energy, real, ridiculous. What's the truth on that? Where are we at?
I'm very bullish on dark matter. I've written on our website.
Yeah, and dark matter is pretty well supported. We don't know exactly what it is, but that something is there is pretty well supported. So I'm not surprised he's so by bullish he means he supports it basically. He's in favor of it. So yeah, I don't see why it shouldn't. Dark energy is a bit less supported. I'm not 100% sure about that one, but yeah.
The Answers in Genesis website, an article, if you look for the case for dark matter, you'll find it really quickly. You were at the last ICC in Cedarville a couple of years ago, and I actually did a presentation. I don't recall you were in the room at that time, but it's also, I guess, probably a video of that out there, and also wrote that up for that as well. So you can go to the International Conference on Creationism from Cedarville a couple of years ago, and my text of that, if not the video as well, my presentation. I'm very bullish on dark matter. The evidence.
Yeah, so Brian's talking about answers in research journals. So, this fake research journal that the creationists have made, hoping that people think it's a real journal with accreditation and support, which it isn't.
This goes back now about over 90 years. And it took astronomers 50 years to catch up and finally reluctantly embrace it. So a lot of creationists are very suspicious of it, but I'm not. I've looked at the data, known about it for decades, and I believe dark matter is real. We don't know what it is. To me, that's a great mystery, and I think it's wonderful that God has made the world in such a curious way. It gives us problems to keep looking for and finding answers. Dark energy, I'm less bullish about. The dark energy has been invoked to explain a difficulty. The Hubble relation tells you, it gives a relation.
And Jester for $5. Thank you, Jester. I really appreciate it. They also believe the greenhouse effect allowed lizards to grow bigger, thus dinos. I don't think so. I think that was the oxygen content. My condolences to your face, your palm, and your brain cells for this, Rick. Look, I knew what I was getting into. I mean, you don't watch an Eric Hovind video and expect there to be nuanced and well thought out takes on stuff. But it is hilarious that his expert has come on and basically just, put his scientific creation into the realm of religion, faith, and magic. Like really that alone did it, saying, well, I appeal to a miracle to change the speed of light. And I mean, Eric's desperately going, oh, could it be different outside the solar system than inside it? So it got here fast. No, it couldn't. You've got to appeal to a miracle, and we don't appeal to miracles in science.
Between redshifts of galaxies and their distances, get what's called the Hubble constant. You get this plot like this. Here's distance, and here's a redshift going vertically. So it goes up like this, and it's a pretty linear relationship. But they expected in a Big Bang universe. This is where creationists need to be very careful. In a Big Bang universe, because there's matter in the universe slowing the expansion of the universe down, there should have been an upturn at great distance. It should be linear and then turn up slightly at great distance. So back in the late 90s, this is now over 25 years ago, there were two independent studies that were looking for that, and they found just the opposite, a downturn. And the interpretation of that is that the universe rate of expansion of the universe is actually increasing. And so they cast about and they decided that there's something driving that expansion, and they call it dark energy, kind of paralleling dark matter, which I think is a terrible name for it. I really don't like it at all. But in a Big Bang universe, the evidence there of a downturn in the Hubble relation demands that dark energy or something like it exists. What does that mean in a biblical cosmology? Well, give me a biblical cosmology and maybe I can tell you. We don't have one yet. So
and there you go. Did you hear that? I'll rewind it. Okay, so if you didn't hear it. Okay, so this is really important. And this is where, as much as I'm hassling Dr. Faulkner, at least he's being honest, right? Like he is, I think he's honestly wrong, but at least he's being honest. Listen to this. Okay, just listen to this.
Relation demands that dark energy or something like it exists. What does that mean in a biblical cosmology? Well, give me a biblical cosmology and maybe I can tell you. We don't have one yet. So it's an interesting thing that we need to explain, but we don't have an explanation yet. We just note that at great distance, there's a departure from linearity in the Hubble relation.
So basically, he's just said, how do we explain that in a biblical cosmology? We don't have one. We do not have one, right? And we can't explain it either. How is it that when we're saying, hey, all of these things are plausible, but we don't know where the universe comes from, then that's evidence for God. But when you're saying, hey, we don't even have a model on the universe in ours, why is it evidence for God? You don't even have a model to describe your universe, your cosmology that you're claiming, or your cosmogony, the origin of the universe. You don't have one. You've just basically said, well, yeah, we believe it's God. We're not going to provide any model, any evidence, nothing whatsoever. We're not even going to postulate on what possibilities it could be. We're just going to say it's God and never be moved from that position. Who is being the more honest here? The people saying, hey, here's some possibilities, but we don't know. And the person saying, well, we know it's God, but we can't even explain it, have no model to show it, no evidence whatsoever, but we're going to claim we absolutely know. There's a problem there. There's a massive problem there. And, Dr. Faulkner, to his credit, is absolutely admitting it. They're not publishing papers on how the normal model is wrong. All they're doing is saying, hey, they postulated all these things and they don't know, so it must be God. That is literally God of the gaps. It is saying, hey, because you do not know what it is, then I'm going to say God and I'm right because you don't know. That is absolutely terrible. But at least he's honest enough to say, hey, we have no model whatsoever to explain anything.
We can't even agree amongst ourselves, among creation astronomers and other scientists, what the Hubble relation means.
They cannot even agree on the basics about what it means. They can't even agree. And that's the problem. Like, at least one side agrees on the basic fundamentals of the universe. You've got Christians who are flat earthers. You've got Christians that are that follow the scientific methods and say, hey, the universe is 14 point whatever billion years old. And then you've got people that say, no, a miracle caused light to speed up somehow. You cannot even get a consistent response. It's just, oh, I know because that's what my Bible tells me. Well, they're over there reading the Bible as well, and they've got a totally different take on it. It's wild, right? But at least he admits, no idea how we're going to prove this. Don't have a model, don't have any kind of scientific evidence or proof. We've just got, hey, we don't think your model's right because of my religion. Okay, who cares?
Mean expansion, or does it mean something else? So I have to beg off on telling you what it is, but the data are there. The problem is, how do you interpret it? And since we reject the Big Bang, we would reject the interpretation of dark energy.
And they reject the Big Bang because they've already come to the conclusion, and this is the problem. They have the conclusion first, and then they're finding the things to justify it. And that is not how science works. That is how apologetics works. You have the conclusion, and then you basically, interpret the data to fit your preformed conclusion already. So that's why they reject the Big Bang, because they've already got the conclusion. The Earth is 6,000 years old, the universe is 6,000 years old, and God did it. So they will reject anything that says differently. That's the thing. Me, I call that confirmation bias. I don't know what they call it, but I call it confirmation bias. It's what we're trying to eliminate in science.
That is fascinating. That's right on the edge of physics and where we're at now. So we need more young people coming and doing physics and astronomy and actually trying to figure this out. I mean, this is the frontiers that we don't, from a biblical perspective, from, okay, if God stretched out the heavens, if God created it, in 6 days, if God, is that basically what you mean by taking the biblical worldview and then going from there to science?
Yeah. And I don't think it's my generation's going to answer this. I mean, you can check out, I'm not a young man.
Yeah, the problem is that when you sort of teach somebody the Earth is 6,000 years old and the universe is 6,000 years old, and then say, well, go out and do science and discover all of these things, they quickly learn that cannot be true. They do have some people who are sort of younger doing this, but mostly all of their stuff is retirees like Faulkner and people that have sort of stepped out of science and, focused on doing AIG stuff, because you quickly find out that there is a ton of evidence of why all this stuff can't be true. It's so wild for him to say, oh, we need people investigating this, but coming to the conclusion that it's God. It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
Anymore. And I'm always interested in replacing myself and also duplicating, having more people. So I think that's one of those questions that the next generation of creation scientists may be able to give us some answers. I'm not so sure if my generation is going to be able to do that for us.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining me, you could come or send somebody that has that potential to meet Dr. Faulkner at the Creation Research Society this July and get some tips and some information from him, along with some other amazing scientists. Would love to have you there. That's fascinating. Hey, social media, I got to let you go. Would love you, if you're fascinated by this like I am. Dr. Faulkner's written a couple articles. They're on answersingenesis.org.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's basically the end of it. But it's just incredible when you actually look at it from sort of no, he says, I use an objective viewpoint, not preconceived notions. And it's like, by the end of it, right? So you contrast that with the start where he's saying, hey, they come in with all these preconceived notions and they don't look at it objectively. And then by the end, Eric is saying, hey, we need more people to investigate this, but have the conclusion that it was the God and the Bible first while they go and investigate how it happened. I mean, that is why I'm calling Eric the king of hypocrisy, because he literally says, hey, you've got preconceived notions, and then wants people to go into science with preconceived notions. Look, science is very specific about what it is. It's methodological naturalism. It is observation of the world around you, asking questions. Those questions form, you make observations, questions, then you form hypotheses. You try to falsify by testing those hypotheses. That makes theory. It goes and basically is peer reviewed. That theory is published. Peer review happens, and then you make more observations from it, and then start testing again. It's a cyclical process. But what you don't do is have those conclusions first and then go in looking for evidence to support that conclusion. That is not how science is done. That's how apologetics is done. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Apologetics is almost the opposite of science, because you have your conclusion first and then you try to find the evidence to make it work. And that's not how science is done at all. So, it's a real worry that Hovind would say, hey, be objective, but have this objective belief in God before you even start. No. And the fact that they've got to appeal to magic, I don't think Eric was expecting that. I don't think he was expecting that his idea that light traveled faster, so the universe is younger than it appears. I don't think he was expecting that to be blown out of the water by Dr. Faulkner here, because it has been. Like, he did it himself. This is a self-inflicted burn. He absolutely got Faulkner on to say, hey, speed of light, maybe the universe is younger than what we think, because the speed of light was, got to us faster, and we think it can only travel this fast. And blows himself straight out of the water. He now has to appeal to miracles and magic and, stuff that's completely unscientific. I don't know how you get around that. Well, if it's magic, he can do anything. Yeah, sure. And, how do you test that scientifically? And then he's sort of putting up as, well, all of these hypotheses, these possibilities that we're pulling up, that scientists saying, hey, it's plausible that this could have happened. They're not saying it did. They're saying, hey, it's plausible. He's holding that up as, this is what people believe. No, we basically do not believe stuff until it has been proven to be true. That's the difference. We're saying, hey, there's not enough evidence, but this could be possible, and this could be possible. There's physicists that will talk about many worlds theory and eternal universe, right? They're contradictory with one another, but they will talk about both because they don't believe both. They're just possibilities, right? That, hey, under physics, this could be possible. Under physics, this couldn't be possible, and all of these things that they talk about doesn't mean that they believe them. It just means you're straw manning them to say, hey, the things you've said are possible are what you actually believe. Isn't that ridiculous? We believe something ridiculous, so we're on even footing. No, we're not, because those physicists are not claiming that they know how the universe came about. Hovind is claiming he knows how the universe came about. Faulkner is claiming he knows how the universe came about, but he cannot demonstrate that, and that's the difference. Hypotheticals and possibilities and talking about all of these things are fine. Doesn't mean you believe them. The sign of a good mind is being able to entertain possibilities without believing that they are true. So I can entertain the possibility that God created everything. I can say, hey, I guess it's possible, but that doesn't mean I believe it, because there's no evidence for it. There's nothing supporting it. And, I do not believe the universe is 6,000 years old, because there's a lot of evidence against it, some of which Faulkner brought up today. Yeah, I agree, Deviant. I absolutely agree. Yeah, no, I get you. I'm not a physicist wandering traveler, I've got to admit. And thank you for wandering by. But yeah, they're trying to poke at questions. And a lot of these possibilities that we discuss are there to, hey, how would we go about investigating this? How would we test this and find out if it's false, kind of thing, like falsifiability, right? We want to try and eliminate those possibilities. So bringing up possibilities, even if you don't believe them, is a good thing, because you want to eliminate them and sort of find out what's robust and reliable and what works. It's the process of science. So Eric's sort of saying, hey, your scientific hypothesis that you're putting out there in order to investigate and try and find out if it's true is equal to my knowledge claim about the origin of the universe, and base how you should live your life off of that knowledge claim that there is a God. Those are not remotely the same level of claim out there, not even in the same ballpark. So, this is sort of just Hovind straw manning, and but it's hilarious that he debunked himself. I just think that's hilarious. Well, I mean, Faulkner debunked him, but still, same diff. But thank you so much, everybody. This has been a lot of fun. I don't know. Hovind's, he's a weird one. He's a weird one. People have said dead eyes at one point. I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure I entirely disagree. Especially when he was laughing to that joke. It's like, okay, yeah, it was humorous, but I think you're really pushing it, mate, to say it's so hilarious that you're cackling in the corner. I don't think it was that funny. The dead eyes is like, dude, are you okay? I'm really, really like, are you all right? I don't know. Greg, I saw a duplicate of one of your posts, but it wasn't too bad, mate. I don't think triplicate. But no problem. No problem. Did you have a question earlier? Who is the authority that determines which authority is valid? Who is the authority? What do you mean, in science? Well, I mean, usually we determine it to be valid when it can make testable predictions against things. So the reason why we're sort of saying, hey, scientific consensus is usually the way to go, is because it can make testable predictions and basically demonstrate the efficacy of it, put those hypotheses and those theories into practice and produce meaningful results. So, for instance, as with scientific theory, well, institutions have worked on computers, for instance, and we've, essentially used that science to implement. Like, I'm talking to you literally from the other side of the world using light to communicate. Okay, that's how I'm talking to you, because all of the backhaul, the cables going between countries, they're fiber optic. I am literally speaking to you through light. It's insane, right? When you think about it, it's insane. We know that the people who put those forward are authorities on how light works, because they've used it to do these things. And so the scientific endeavor is a whole bunch of people using each other's thoughts and theories to implement them in engineering, to make testable predictions, to basically show that what they think about the world around us is actually accurate. And that's how we know. So the reason why we take scientific consensus as the authority is because it's been demonstrated to be reliable and effective. It's not just because we don't just take one scientist and say, hey, they say this, so therefore it is truth. We basically say, hey, the overwhelming amount of scientists in that field agree on this thing, and that is the most reliable way that we can get the truth about the world around us. It isn't one person. We don't just decide, hey, this one person is the authority on it. No. We basically say, hey, we get an aggregation of all the people that are doing things like, oh, I don't know, using light to let me communicate from the other side of the planet. That's pretty substantive evidence that they know what they're talking about. Just saying. So yeah, stuff like that is basically how we do it. You know, and life has got incredibly much better since we started, instead of assigning to religious authority, starting to listen to those people that can produce meaningful and reliable results within science. That's why we sort of, you know, we don't 100% trust them. We don't go, oh, everything they're saying is right, because we know that it's been wrong, but it's the most reliable way to get the truth about what's around us. And I will put the scientific method up against any other method anybody has got. I'll happily do that. But thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, I've had fun. Yeah, no worries, Greg. Not a problem, mate. I did like your question, though. It's like, you know, why should we trust these people? Well, they produce results. That's basically it. I guess I could have summed that up. Look, I talk a lot, okay? Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, I agree, Deviant. Yeah, Eric Hovind, he must have had, yeah, you know, a horrible childhood. Look, I had a horrible childhood, and I don't. Yeah, exactly. No, I gotcha. But don't forget, be kind to yourself. Okay, treat yourself well. I think that, you know, out of all the people, treat yourself well today. Yeah, I think you're just being rude, Sven. I think you're just being rude, mate. Yeah, I'm gonna give you the boot. Can we have band hammers in the chat? Yeah, but do take care of yourself. Okay, do something for yourself today. Even just thank yourself for, you know, taking care of yourself. As I said earlier, mental health checkups are no problem at all. Don't think it's shameful or anything like that. We check up on our physical health. We can check up on our mental health. It probably is a good idea. There are people who are experts in it. Hopefully you find someone good. I do need to do the same. So yeah. But yeah, do be kind to each other, or at least try to be kind to each other. You know, you don't have to sort of take what somebody's saying as a possibility and say that, hey, it's an actual truth claim, that they're telling you that they have authority because this is true. You don't have to take it like that. Don't misrepresent people. But thank you so much, everybody. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.
This old switchboard could talk. Wow, your ears would sizzle. 1880. We take Alexander Graham Bell's invention for granted today. Perhaps we should. But isn't it incredible that millions and millions of people can talk simultaneously to practically any spot on Earth?